Hi, everyone. Welcome to Nice Gamely Chanel. If you find this content interesting or helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me create even better content. Thank you so much. I made 2 billion overnight by live stream. I thought I could enjoy a carefree life with my beloved. However, I unexpectedly got into a car accident on my. When I opened my eye, I found myself in the body of a drunkard and gambler. A little child in front of me was looking at me with sadness. Daddy, save. Mommy. I suddenly opened my eyes wide. A flood of memories surged into my mind. The original owner of this body was a complete scumbag, yet he somehow managed to marry a popular actress. Later, their relationship was exposed. His wife resolutely gave up her career. She quit her job as she even gave birth to a lovely daughter for him. However, after the honeymoon, he was fired from his company due to his incompetence. Instead of reflecting on himself, he blamed everything on his wife. He believed that marrying this unlucky was the reason he lost his job. After absorbing all of these memories, I couldn't help but curse, "Scumbag!" Then, with a complex expression, I looked up. In the corner, a mother and daughter were huddled. They had just been abused by the Bai Shihan was holding the child. When she saw me staring at her body trembled uncontrollably. Instinctively, she held the baby even tighter and her eyes were filled with tears. She had thought about running away with the child, but she was an orphan herself. And all the money in the house was controlled by this devil. She even considered ending her own life, but she couldn't bear to leave her. If she died, what would happen to her 3-year-old? So every time she was beaten, she had to endure it alone. She couldn't even cry loudly. She was afraid of scaring the child. After a long while, I let out a deep sigh. Slowly, I stood up and turned on. The warm orange glow illuminated the entire room. Broken furniture and the heavy stench of alcohol filled the air. Looking at the messy room in front of me, I scratched my head speechlessly and silently started. Bai Shihan remained curled up, holding Nai tightly, but a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. After all, this devil had never cleaned up before. He would always drink, and then this was the first time something like this had happened. I didn't disturb the mother and daughter. Instead, I went to the kitchen, grabbed a towel, and wiped the I cleaned until the entire room was spotless. By then, I was drenched in sweat. After taking a short break, I took a clean set of clothes from the bedroom. Then I walked into the Bai Shihan stared at the closed bathroom door. Then she looked around at the now spotless room. Her eyes were filled with deep uncertainty. He even threw away the leftover alcohol. Why? Could it be that he had changed? She didn't believe it. A devil is still a devil. Mommy Nai is hungry. 3-year-old Nai looked up with her round, bright eyes. She gazed at her mother. Bai Shihan gently stroked Nai's hair. Be good, Nai. Mommy will make you food soon. Nai obediently nodded. Even at such a young age, she already understood. She could only eat when dad. After showering, I pushed open the bath and clearly saw the mother and daughter sitting on the worn-out. Both of them instinctively shrank. I shook my head, ignoring them. I pushed the door open, and Bai Shihan froze. A look of despair filled. Had he gone out to buy more alcohol? Would she and Nai have to go hungry again tonight? Bai Shihan bit her lip. Her face turned pale. Tears streamed uncontrollably. Nai thought that her mother was crying because she was hungry. She quickly reached out her tiny hand, clumsily wiping the tears off Bai Shihan's. Mommy, don't cry. Nai is not hungry. Bai Shihan bit her lip. Her tears fell even more heavily. After a while, she finally spoke in a trembling voice. Be good, Nai. Mommy will put you to sleep. When you fall asleep, you won't. Tomorrow morning, Mommy will wake up early and make you something delicious. Nai nodded obediently. Okay, Mommy, don't cry. Bai Shihan gently stood up while holding Nai. The wounds on her back ached with every movement. Years of malnutrition made her vision blur for a moment, but she struggled to stand up and carried her daughter step by step into the bedroom. Lying on the bed, Bai Shihan finally felt a bit of relief. She softly hummed a lullaby to lull Nai to sleep. As she watched Nai slowly close her eyes, memories of the past 2 years of marriage flooded her mind. Her heart ached deeply. She finally made up her mind. Tomorrow, she would escape this hell. Even if she died out there, it would be better than being tortured to. Just then, the sound of the door unlocked. Lost in her thoughts, Bai Shihan trembled involuntarily. She shuddered. Instinctively, she covered Nai's ears, quietly listening to the sounds outside. I pushed open the door and subconsciously glanced at the sofa. I couldn't help but feel surprised. They had gone into the bedroom, but it seemed like they hadn't eaten yet. I stared at the food in my hands. After thinking for a moment, I set the food on the table. Then I walked toward the bed. Bai Shihan remained tense. She heard my footsteps approaching. Hurriedly, She shut her eyes and in her heart, she prayed that I wouldn't. But in the next moment, a knock on the door suddenly broke the silence. "If you're hungry, come out and eat. I'll sleep in the side room tonight." Hearing the familiar voice, Bai Shihan's eyes suddenly snapped open. Then she heard his footsteps gradually fading away. The room fell silent once more. Only Bai Shihan's nervous breathing echoed in the bedroom. At some point, Nainai had opened her eyes. She had clearly heard my voice. She stared curiously at the tightly shut door. Today, that smelly daddy didn't come back to sleep in the room, and he even said he bought food for them. Thinking about the food made her hungry. She swallowed her saliva, looking at her mother with anticipation. The situation was too bizarre, leaving Bai Shihan at a loss. But when she saw her daughter's expectant eyes, she gathered her courage. On tiptoe, she quietly walked to the bedroom. She opened it. The aroma of the food on the dining table wafted in. Bai Shihan's eyes welled up with tears. Even the food in the distance looked blurry. He actually bought food for them. Faced with this devil's sudden kindness, Bai Shihan didn't feel happiness. Instead, she felt deep-rooted fear. Why was he doing this? What did he want from her this time? Nainai, barefoot, ran over with her tiny legs. She peeked through the gap in the door. Then her eyes lit up instantly. Saliva unconsciously dripped from her mouth, but she didn't rush forward. Instead, she lifted her, blinking her big, bright eyes at her mother. Bai Shihan closed her eyes helplessly. Then she looked at her daughter's eager expression again. She took a deep breath. Then she forced a small smile. She picked Nainai up. "Shh, Nainai, be good. Let's be quiet. Let's eat." Nainai shut her eyes happily, nodding her tiny head excitedly. Inside my room, I had, of course, heard everything. I let out a deep sigh. After getting a haircut earlier and buying food, I realized in this home, there was only about 800 yuan left in savings. If I had crossed over any later, this family might have already starved. I need to find a way to. After pondering, I suddenly got excited. Why didn't I realize it sooner? This is a parallel world. I quickly grabbed my phone and started browsing through this world. Sure enough, just like in my the cultural industry and were completely different from my previous world. In particular, the entertainment industry here was rather even some mediocre shallow songs could top the trending music chart. My mind raced. I recalled countless classic songs. Thinking about them, I gradually felt exhausted. Dragging my tired body, I slowly drifted into sleep. The next morning at exactly 6 a.m., I stretched lazily. Turning around, I quietly opened the bedroom door and stepped. The dining table and kitchen had been cleaned spotless. It must have been Bai Shihan, who tidied up after dinner last night. I stood still for a moment. Bai Shihan usually got up at 8 a.m. to prepare breakfast, because in the past, I would sleep until after 10 a.m. Only after I woke up and drank, could she and Nainai eat the leftovers I left behind. I instinctively let out another sigh. Inside the bedroom, Bai Shihan was actually off, but she didn't dare go out. She listened as the noises outside. The door opened and then closed. Bai Shihan pressed her lips, her eyes fixed on the bedroom door. She was curious. Where had he gone this time? After waiting for a long time, the outside, Bai Shihan glanced at Nainai, who was still sound asleep. After hesitating, she gathered her courage and she opened the bedroom door. The smell of alcohol in the room had faded significantly. Fresh air flowed in through the windows. It smelled wonderful. This unfamiliar situation made Bai Shihan feel surreal. It had been a long time since she had smelled fresh air like this. Can this feeling of comfort appear in the house? Will this warmth return? Bai Shihan walked to the window and looked outside. Unconsciously, he stood there, and until this moment, he suddenly remembered that he was only 24 years old. He didn't know how long had passed. The sound of the door opening rang. Bai Shihan was startled awake. His body instinctively tensed up. He turned his body mechanically. I was also stunned in place. I didn't expect Bai Shihan to already be awake. I woke up this morning and found there was so I went out and bought some vegetables and rice. We both stood there, stunned. Only then did I take a good look at the person before. My wife. She was beautiful, far more beautiful than any internet celebrity or star in the world, especially those eyes. They seemed to speak. But right now, her eyes were filled with fear and unease, and she was too thin. Her face was unnaturally pale. She probably hadn't seen sunlight in a long, or maybe she was malnourished. Seeing this, I felt pain, hatred, and shame. What a beast. How could someone treat such a beautiful person so cruel? It's unforgivable. I broke the awkward silence first. Good morning. I'm gonna cook. After saying that, I lowered my head. Not carrying the groceries, I quickly walked into the. Couldn't believe her ears and eyes. He actually greeted her. And since when did he know how to cook? Bai Shihan silently watched the busy figure in a deep sense of grief. She bit her lips tightly. Her eyes gradually became misty. What was this? Was he pitying her? Did he suddenly grow a conscience? Or was he? When Nana saw Bai Shihan in the living room, she immediately ran out barefoot. As soon as she came out, she smelled the aroma. She turned her head and stared at the kitchen with wide. Inside the kitchen, naturally, also saw the little one. I grinned and smiled at the little girl. But unexpectedly, Nana shrank behind. She hid behind her. I helplessly rubbed my nose. Suddenly, I felt suffocated. It felt like I was lacking oxygen. Before long, the meal was ready. I took off my apron, looking at the two still standing hesitantly at it. Go wash up and come eat. Nana was already swallowing her saliva, but she still didn't move. Bai Shihan looked at the scene, watching what was happening. I was originally hopeful, but seeing how guarded they were, my hopes sank to the bottom of the sea. I was silent for a moment, then sighed, "You two eat first." After saying that, I turned around. Bai Shihan was touched. She watched as the door to the side bed, then she lowered her head and saw the expectation. She sighed in her heart, "Nana, go wash your hands and eat." Hearing this, Nana's eyes instantly lit up. Mom, did Dad make this for Nana?" Bai Shihan hesitated. She looked at her daughter's expectant gaze, and in the end, she nodded. Seeing her mother's response, Nana's eyes shone even brighter. She couldn't wait to scoop up a spoonful of egg and put it in her mouth. This was the first time Dad had made her a meal. "It's so delicious." Bai Shihan just ate silently. Inside, he felt conflicted and lost. I sat at the desk in the side bedroom. I was actually starving. But I knew that right now, the mom still couldn't sit at the same table and eat with me. Ah, what a sin. I took out my phone, opened the short video platform of This World, logged out of my old account, which still had and registered a new one. Out of habit, I checked the trending list. The next moment, my brows furrowed. What kind of garbage is this song? Since when did these random manage to dominate the trending list? Ridiculous. I suddenly had an idea. I searched through my desk and found some old dust. These were left behind by. I laid the sheets flat on the desk, humming a familiar melody softly. My hand moved quickly, writing a 6-line music score. In my previous, I was a songwriter and composer. This was nothing difficult for me. In just a short moment, a complete composition appeared before. I couldn't wait. I quickly searched the wardrobe and pulled out a guitar. Holding it, I took a deep breath, adjusting my emotions. The next moment, I closed my fingers gently brushed against the melody drifted through the air. As the sound of the guitar spread from the room, Bai Shihan, who was silently eating, suddenly froze. She turned to look at the tightly shut door. Her eyes filled with surprise. She knew very well that he couldn't play the guitar. So what was happening now? Even Nana, who was happily eating, was captivated by the song. She put down her spoon, looking toward the tightly shut door. So gentle. It was the first time she had heard such a gentle sigh. Even though Bai Shihan had never heard this song, she could tell how extraordinary it was. Such a beautiful melody, such touching lyrics. She couldn't believe that this was coming from the mouth of a demon. The guitar still played gently. My voice continued to linger in the air. The two beauties, sitting at the dining table, were completely stunned until the next line of the song played. Hearing this, Bai Shihan could no longer hold. Her shoulders began to tremble slightly. Tears started falling one by one. 2 years, a whole 2 years. 2 years of living in constant fear. She hadn't heard music for 2 years. Hadn't stepped out of the house for 2 years. Her days were filled with cooking, cleaning, and a man who was slowly turning into a demon. Now, she had finally gathered the courage to escape. But why was he singing this song? Why did he suddenly change? Bai Shihan was breaking down. She was lost again. She was afraid this was just a dream that would shatter, returning At that moment, the singing stopped. Nana noticed that her mother was crying. Panicked, she climbed onto Bai Shihan's lap. She reached out her tiny hands, trying to wipe her mother's tears. "Mommy, don't cry, don't cry. Nana will blow on it for you." Nana thought her mother was in pain again. As she wiped Bai Shihan's tears, she lifted her tiny face and pulled open Bai Shihan, blowing gently underneath the collar. Her back was covered in scars. I had no idea what was happening outside. At this moment, I opened my phone and started recording a video. I played and sang the entire song once again. When the song ended, I saved the recording and uploaded it. I let out a slow breath. Finally, it was done. Now, I just had to wait and see how people reacted. After finishing everything, I put the guitar back then rubbed my stomach, which was completely empty. I wondered if they had finished eating. Still rubbing my stomach, I couldn't wait. I gently pushed open the door, leaving just a small gap. Like a thief, I peeked outside, just in time to see Bai Shihan. She was holding Nana as she left the dining. Her eyes were red. She looked like she had just been crushed. Bai Shihan clearly saw me too. She froze for a moment, then quickly carried the child back into the mat. I let out a sigh of relief, pushed the door open, and walked. Finally, I could eat. I looked at the food they had clearly left for me on the table and felt a little happy. After eating, I wandered aimlessly around the room. Then suddenly, the master bedroom door opened. I turned toward the sound. A little head peeked out from the doorway. It was Nana. She tilted her head, curiously observing me. Seeing Nana, I instinctively wanted to smile. But before I could even pull my lips up, she got scared and quickly shut the door and ran back inside. From inside the room, I could hear Bai Shihan's clear. She was soothing the child. I helplessly rubbed my nose. Time passed quietly. 4 hours flew by as I scrolled through my phone. By noon, I put my phone down and rubbed my temples. I stood up. It was time to make lunch. Just then, the bedroom door opened. Expressionless, Bai Shihan walked out holding a pot. She stepped out of the bedroom. She acted as if she didn't see me standing in front and walked straight to the bathroom. I clearly noticed that as she stepped, her body stiffened slightly. Was she going to do laundry? I suddenly remembered. Yesterday, I left my clothes in the washing machine, and thinking of this, I quickly headed toward the bathroom. Bai Shihan's heart was pounding. She hadn't expected me to still be at home. At this time of day, I would normally be out drinking with my buddies. She heard my footsteps. They were approaching her. Her heart tightened even more. Her heartbeat sped up. Her body trembled slightly. My clothes are still in the washing machine. Can I take them out to dry first? My familiar voice sounded from behind. Bai Shihan, who was bent to open the washing machine door, was startled. Her body trembled as she stepped into the bathroom in fear. Be careful, I couldn't help but say again. Only then did Bai Shihan realize that I was actually asking for her permission. She avoided my gaze, not daring to look at me, but she still said, okay, you can take them. Thank you, I nodded. My hands suddenly trembled, and my eyes couldn't hide my anger and heartbreak. I had clearly seen just now, beneath Bai Shihan's neck, those dark purple bruises and scars. Even though I had this beast's memories, seeing it in person was something else entirely. I couldn't imagine how such a monstrous person. I gathered my clothes from the washing machine, avoiding looking at her further. My mind was racing at full speed. I'll make lunch later. Make sure Nana comes out to eat. Nana is asleep. I'll wake her up later, she replied. Bai Shihan shrank back again, looking extremely flustered. Even her words came out jumbled. I knew my presence only made her nervous, so I quickly took my clothes, brought them to the balcony to dry, then went straight into the kitchen. Inside the bathroom, Bai Shihan was still standing there, frozen. She only snapped out of it when she heard the sounds of cooking. Her hands trembled as she placed the clothes into, yet her eyes couldn't help but drift toward the kitchen. What was he doing? Why was he cooking again? For himself and the child. Listening to the sound of the wash, Bai Shihan's heart was in turmoil. By the time the laundry was done, she took the clothes to the balcony to dry them. Meanwhile, that man was still busy cooking in the kitchen. Nana didn't wait for Bai Shihan. He woke up on his own. Still barefoot, he pushed the door open. His little hands kept rubbing his sleepy, drowsy eyes, those big misty eyes. The next moment, when he saw me busy in the kitchen, his bright, beautiful eyes lit up slightly. Then, curiously, he leaned against the kitchen doorframe, watching my back. Bai Shihan finished hanging and turned back just in time to see this. She was completely stunned. She turned around abruptly, leaning against. Her hands covered her face, and she slowly crouched down. Silent tears began to fall. This was a scene she had only dreamed of long. Still, I did not eat with the mother and son. After placing the food on the table, I quickly walked out of the house. Hearing the door close, Bai Shihan hurriedly wiped her tear-streaked face. She stood up, carried Nana, and went to the dining table. The table was still set with 2 meat dishes. There were also 2 bowls of rice and 1 bowl steamed. Bai Shihan stared at the table, at the beautifully prepared. She sat in a daze for a long time before No one knew how complicated her feelings were right now. Not even herself. She didn't even know what she was thinking. The food was just as delicious as breakfast. The little one was happily eating his egg custard, but their peaceful lunch was soon interrupted by the sound of the door. They instinctively looked up and saw me carrying a large bag of ice. Pushing the door open as Nana instinctively moved closer to Bai Shihan. The little spoonful of steamed egg was still in his mouth. He froze in place. His big, round eyes followed my every move. I lowered my eyes, not daring to look at the frightened mother, and I simply walked to the sofa and placed the bag down. Then I spoke. My voice was a little muffled. I bought you some ointment. Remember to use it. I also bought a toy for the child. I don't know if he will like it, I saw other little girls have it. He should have one too. The idiot hasn't responded yet. After speaking, I fell silent for I know you won't believe me. But there are still things I have to say. I won't drink anymore in the future. I won't hit you anymore. You and Grandma don't have to be so afraid at home. The child is still young. This kind of atmosphere at home isn't, I said everything in one. I felt much relieved from the depression in my heart. I didn't wait for Bai Shihan to respond. I silently walked back to the side. Bai Shihan watched as my figure disappeared. Her emotions were extremely facing this man's sudden change. She still found it hard to let her guard down. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, I felt even worse. Tears welled up in my eyes. Being trapped in the body of such a scumbag, I felt terrible, especially when I saw the scars all over Bai Shihan's body. My suppressed heart grew even after staying in this house for just one day. I already felt so overwhelmed. I truly couldn't understand how someone could harbor such malice towards their own family. After eating, Bai Shihan still left some food for me. She washed her own and Nana's bowls and chopsticks. Looking at the bag on the table, in the end, she took Nana's hand and walked to the mat. This sudden kindness, she really couldn't accept it. Who knew if it was just another trap to make her lower her guard? Besides, she had long been used to the pain. She didn't even know what she had left that he was trying so hard to obtain. After experiencing a brief moment of kindness, she was terrified that the previous days would return. Yet deep down, a tiny part of her hoped that maybe if she didn't accept his kindness, he would continue to treat her like today. I just hope he stays like this for just one more day. One more day. I heard the sound of the bedroom door closing. I knew the mother and child had finished eating. Only then did I get up and leave the room. Then I saw that the bag on the coffee table was still unopened, sitting quietly in its original. I sighed, not knowing what to do. I could only sit down and eat in silence. At that moment, the master bedroom door unexpectedly opened. Nai peeked out with a small head, curiously staring at me eating. I tried to smile at him again. This time, finally, as I wished, the little one wasn't scared away. He continued to curiously observe me eating. I felt slightly relieved. A heart full of pressure was somewhat healed by this soft and adorable. I put down my chopsticks with the gentlest, most reassuring voice. I called out to the little one, Nai Nai. My sudden voice startled the little guy slightly. He trembled a little, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he turned to look into the mouth as if receiving some kind of encouragement. Then he looked back at me. A tender, soft voice came from his mouth. Daddy. Hearing that voice, I trembled. My eyes instantly filled with tears. A bright smile bloomed on my as radiant as a flower. This was the most beautiful I had heard since coming to this world. Nai tilted his looking at his father, who was both crying, seemingly puzzled. He seemed to wonder, how can someone smile while crying? I softly responded with a gentle Then I stood up, walked to the sofa, and took out the doll I had just bought. I gently waved it at Nai. He looked at the doll in my hand. Then he turned his head to glance at the master bedroom. After a long hesitation, he slowly walked toward me. At this moment, my heart pounded. Looking at this little girl like a tiny angel, I even held my breath, afraid that any move might scare away this little one who had finally taken. Nai only knew that Daddy would make delicious food for her, and now he was holding her favorite toy. Maybe Daddy wouldn't be mean to her and Mommy anymore. She walked up to me, lifted her little face, and sniffed the air. Then she broke into a happy smile. Daddy doesn't smell bad anymore. Happy. Nai, do you like the doll in Daddy's hand? Looking at this tiny, adorable child, I spoke to her as gently and sincerely as I could. Nai's little hands twitched as if she wanted to take the doll from me. But she still didn't have the courage to reach out. She just stared at me with her bright, clear eyes. My gaze was fixed on Nai, so I naturally noticed her reaction. So I slowly crouched down until I was at eye level with her. Then I gently placed the toy in her hands. The moment my fingers touched her tiny hands, I felt my whole body tense up. Nai finally took the toy she loved so much. Her gaze shifted from me to the doll. She gently ran her small fingers over the doll's soft dress. Her eyes curved into crescent moon. Watching her, holding the toy with a twinkle in her eyes, I felt a mix of emotions, especially seeing up close how dry and brittle her hair, her thin little face, and the faded, obviously too small clothes. My heart clenched as if stabbed by. She's only 3 years old. She should be cherished, yet now, just because of a small toy, she was overflowing with happiness. I gritted my teeth, quickly wiped my eyes, forced a smile, and just quietly watched. Nai playing beside me. At this moment, there was nothing else in my eye. Inside the master bedroom, Bai Shihan was even more nervous. He didn't know if this was right or wrong, but he agreed with what I had said before. The child was still, she shouldn't have to grow up in this kind of environment. Letting the child get close to him was the best he could do for now. From outside, Nai's silver bell-like laughter. Hearing it, Bai Shihan couldn't stop his tears. He just sat on the bed in silence, quietly wiping his tears. Not long after, Nai seemed to have gotten tired. She hugged the doll tightly, glanced at her silly smiling daddy, her little face showing a brief Then she turned around and ran back to the bedroom. I just stood there, dumbfounded, watching the little one disappear, touched my nose, and silently chuckled. Looks like I need to buy this little one a proper pair of. Running around barefoot all the time isn't a good habit. Time slowly passed. For dinner, I still made 3 dishes and a soup. Zhao Li let the mother and daughter eat. Only then did I sit down to clear my plate. That night, I went to bed early. But what I didn't know was, in just one night, the song A Lifetime with You went absolutely viral. At 10 p.m. that night, the video successfully made it onto Douyin's trending list, ranked 5th and still climbing. By 6 a.m. the next morning, the video on Douyin had already racked up a staggering 500,000. The comments had surpassed 200,000. For context, even top influencers getting hundreds of thousands of likes usually only see a few thousand comments. So this comment engagement rate was absolutely insane, and my follower count skyrocketed past 1 million overnight, all because of one song and one video. Overnight, I became 1 million. Of course, most of these were fans of that one viral video. If I didn't continue to produce songs of the same quality as that video, I would soon be forgotten by most of them. I woke up at 5 a.m. I had no idea my song had already exploded online. After a quick wash-up, I stepped out of the house for my morning workout. By the time I got home, it was already 7:40 a.m. As soon as I pushed open the door, I ran into Bai Shihan coming out of the bathroom. We locked eyes. He visibly flinched upon seeing me, his expression slightly. Looking at me drenched in sweat, he seemed uneasy, but he still looked flustered. I didn't know you went out. I'll go make breakfast now. I was momentarily feeling a bit awkward in this situation, but I quickly responded, Nai is still sleeping. Bai Shihan pursed his lips, lowered his head and muttered. He felt his heartbeat quicken. After exercising, the fresh scent of sunlight on me made him uncomfortable. He felt nervous inside. His instincts made him avoid me. He quickly walked toward the kitchen. You watch over Nai. I'll cook after I take a shower. Is there anything you'd like to eat? My voice came from behind, slightly attempting to. Bai Shihan hesitated for a long moment, his voice trembling slightly as he finally replied, No, anything is fine. I'll go check on the child. After saying that, Bai Shihan quickened his, practically fleeing into the bedroom. I stared at the closed bedroom door, shrugging helplessly. After my shower, I felt starving. On top of that, my body was craving alcohol. I felt miserable, so I distracted myself by chugging hot water like crazy to suppress. Nai was also awake by now. After Bai Shihan helped her wash up, she leaned against the kitchen doorframe, watching me cook. She was still hugging the doll I had given her yesterday. I turned around and saw the little one. Grinning at her like I softly asked, Nai, what do you want for breakfast today? Daddy will make it for you. Nai tilted, seriously thinking for a long while. Then her big eyes sparkled. Steamed egg. Nai loves steamed egg. I smiled indulgently. All right, steamed egg it is. As I spoke, I reached out to pat her little head, but hesitated and withdrew my hand. I was afraid of startling this little angel. Take it slow. No rush, I thought to myself. Nai was clearly starting to accept me. That gave me hope. My heart felt lighter. Even my cravings for alcohol and hunger seemed to. Breakfast was as plentiful as 1 meat dish, 2 vegetable dishes, and of course, Nai. I quietly returned to my small bedroom, leaving the mother and daughter to. But unlike before, this time, there was more laughter. Lying in bed in my side bedroom, I picked up my phone, which I had set to silent mode, wanting to check on the video's performance. The moment I unlocked my phone, I was stunned. Holy crap, how many notifications is this? My phone was flooded with messages, all maxed out at 99. With slightly trembling hands, I cleared the notification. Swallowing hard, I tapped into my account page. The follower count, over 1 million, nearly blinded me. Overnight, feeling overwhelmed, I clicked on the video again. Over 2 million likes, and the comments, every single one of them was positive. All of them were words of praise. I checked my private messages. Almost all of them were from advertisers looking to or various guilds trying to recruit. I ignored them all, because the moment of witnessing the earnings I opened the Douyin backend. The earnings displayed in my wallet made me grin. Without taking any ads and in just one day, this video relied solely on traffic, generating a staggering revenue of $320,000. Seeing the earnings, I immediately breathed, I have money now. Life will no longer be so tight. Previously, holding on to all my just over 1,000 yuan, I was extremely cautious even when buying. Now that I have this first pot of gold, I naturally feel much more at ease. After transferring the earnings to my bank, I waited until the two people outside finished their meal, and only then did I quickly push the door open. After breakfast, I hurried out of the house. I headed straight to the shopping mall, I remembered. First, I bought a phone for Bai Shihan. Then I urgently bought a whole bunch of. I was busy until 10:30 in the morning. Returning home fully loaded, I followed a large truck, specifically for back home in high spirits. Indeed, the life of a wealthy person is all about buy. This feeling is amazing. After I left home, Bai Shihan brought Nana out of the bedroom. Han cleaned up the entire house from top to bottom. Then she sat on the sofa, looking at the clear blue sky outside. After 2 days of ventilation, the house was completely free. Fresh air kept blowing in through the window, making her feel extremely comfortable. Nana lay beside Bai Shihan, playing with the new doll she just got. Her big eyes had already curved into crescent moon. Her smiles over the past 2 days were noticeably. She also became much more cheerful. This was something Bai Shihan never dared to imagine before. Watching Nana play happily, the corners of Bai Shihan unconsciously curved into a small smile. This kind of life is truly wonderful. Then suddenly Bai Shihan froze. She couldn't believe it and touched the corners of her lip. Then she saw the ointment, still quietly sitting on the coffee table. She was smiling, so she could still smile after all. Bai Shihan fell into deep thought. In the living room, only the sound of Nana playing remained. Suddenly, the sound of a turning door lock startled Bai Shihan from her thoughts. Nana quickly climbed up, hugging her doll and burrowing into Bai Shihan's arms. Noise came from outside, and along with it, a familiar voice of mine. Slow down, slow down. Be careful not to scratch it. Stand it up. Bai Shihan panicked slightly. She quickly picked up Nana, wanting to retreat to the bedroom. Yet, curiosity made her glance toward the door. She saw my figure along with that of a stranger. They appeared first in her sight. They were carrying a cream-colored cloud-shaped sofa. Upon seeing Bai Shihan, my eyes visibly lit up. A cheerful smile spread across my face. Hey, could you pour a few cups of hot water for us? Once we're done, the workers can take a short break. I'll do it right away. Having not interacted with outside for a long time, Bai Shihan felt a little flustered, but she quickly regained her composure, hugging Nana and walking briskly to the. Meanwhile, I, along with the work, moved the new sofa inside. Then we took out the old worn-out sofa. Next came the TV, the refrigerator. It was as if I didn't feel tired at all, personally helping with the moving alongside the work. With each new piece of furniture coming in, the home transformed instantly. The once old and shabby appearance was completely renewed. The house now radiated new life and vitality. Bai Shihan stood in the kitchen as if she had seen a ghost, staring at the sudden transformation. Her expression shifted from shock to disbelief, and finally to confusion. She unconsciously tightened her around Nana. Nana was originally looking around with her big. She was fascinated by the furniture in front of her. But as Bai Shihan hugged her tighter, her big eyes shifted to look at her mother. A grievance appeared on her face. Mommy is bad. She hugged me too tightly. Fortunately, Bai Shihan quickly realized. She adjusted to a more comfortable position. Then, with an apologetic smile, she kissed Nana's cheek. While comforting Nana, she also glanced at me, who had just finished. I was bargaining with the workers. The old furniture being replaced was finally sold by me for 800 yuan. All of it was gone. Bai Shihan felt a little hurt. Although the furniture was old, it was still in good condition. Selling it for only 800 yuan. But what intrigued him more now was where I got so much money. According to his calculations, our family should barely have enough to get by. After seeing the workers off, I carried a big bag back to the living room. Placing the bag on the new coffee table, I plopped down onto the soft sofa. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, the mother and child. By now, Bai Shihan had already put Nana down. Nana clung to her mother's leg, looking around curiously, like a little explorer. It was obvious she was inspecting all the new things in the house. Seeing the little one like this, I couldn't help but smile. My eyes narrowed into slits. Suddenly, I felt a great sense. I reached into the big bag on the and pulled out a large pink toy. I placed it on the table. As expected, as soon as Nana saw the toy, her gaze was immediately drawn to it. One tiny hand was still holding on to her doll. The other one was clutching Bai Shihan's clothes. She leaned forward slightly, trying to see clearly what kind of toy I was. She looked like she wanted to come over, but didn't dare. My nose suddenly tingled. Other 3-year-olds, at this moment, would have already rushed excitedly into that sense of accomplishment I had felt. I quietly clenched my fists. Then I slowly released them. I reached out my hand and beckoned to Nana. Looking at her lovingly, I said, "Nana, come here quick. Look at what Daddy bought for you." Nana didn't run over immediately. She first looked up at her mother. Seeing Bai Shihan's lips move without saying it, she hesitated before slowly walking over. By then, I had already unwrapped the toy, revealing what was inside. Wow, it's a princess doll. But oh no, the princess's house is so— Nana, do you want to help Daddy decorate the princess's home together? Hearing my words, Nana blinked. Her bright, twinkling eyes were full of longing. She inched closer to the sofa, moving until she was right next to me. Nana blinked her big eyes. She glanced at me, then she hesitantly lifted her small hand, slowly reaching toward the princess doll, and not far away, Bai Shihan stood there, holding her breath unconscious. Her eyes were fixed on Nana's outstretched hand. I kept my smile, placing the princess doll into Nana's hand. Then I gently tried to hold her tiny hand, Nana's small hand. When her warm little hand rested in my palm, the corners of my lips lifted. One hand held Nana's little hand. The other handed her a small dress. I spoke softly again, dressing up the princess. That's Nana's special task. Daddy is so clumsy. Nana, can you teach Daddy? Daddy's hands are so warm, even warmer than Mommy's. Nana looked at the little princess in front of her, then glanced at my expectant face. Suddenly she laughed. Daddy is so— Nana will teach Daddy. The little one's bright smile revealed her almond-shaped eyes curved into two crescent moons. She leaned against my thigh, taking the small dress from my hand, clumsily trying to dress up the little princess doll. I laughed along with her, humbly accepting the little one's guidance. At this moment, the small room suddenly felt warm and bright. The laughter of the mother and daughter echoed through the living room. This was the first time that Nana had played in her father's arms, feeling the warmth that only At the doorframe, Bai Shihan stood quietly, watching this beautiful scene unfold. Her eyes grew misty. The mother and daughter hadn't played for long. Nana was still decorating the princess under my guidance. I looked up and saw Bai Shihan staring blankly from the kitchen doorway. His faded light blue shirt stood out so starkly, I couldn't help but squint my eyes. This looked like a matching outfit. Suddenly, I remembered, it really was a matching outfit. It was bought secretly by Bai Shihan for Nana's second birthday, behind the original. Later, when the original owner, Bai Shihan, was beaten, her phone was even sold by the— Thinking about all of this, I fell silent. The next second, I staggered to my feet. Clutching my mouth, I rushed to the bathroom and started vomiting. Only now did I realize, when a person with a conscience looks back on such actions from a first person, it brings overwhelming disgust and anger. The sudden commotion startled the mother and daughter. Bai Shihan even shuddered from fright. She quickly stepped toward them, scooping Nana into her arms. Nana burrowed into Bai Shihan's embrace, afraid that if she was— Her father, who had just finished vomiting, would suddenly— Just like before, hitting and scolding her every time Daddy made such noises before. He would become a terrifying beast, like a man-eating tiger. After a while, I stumbled out of the bathroom. My eyes were bloodshot. Looking at the frightened Bai Shihan and Nana, I felt even more miserable. My stomach churned uncontrollably, but I forced myself to endure the discomfort. Weakly, I spoke to them. "I'm sorry. I scared you both. I just feel a little unwell. Thinking about what the original owner did makes me feel sick to my stomach, especially since I am now occupying his body. My whole body feels as if a million ants are crawling over me." Seeing Bai Shihan and Nana still looking at me warily, I let out a heavy sigh. I walked past Bai Shihan, who was holding, and silently went into the— I picked up the vegetables and started— Nana might still want to play. You can keep playing with her for a bit. I'll make lunch. Bai Shihan carefully glanced at my side profile. That face was so familiar, yet so foreign. In the end, she nodded. Holding Nana, she sat in the spot I had occupied. Nana peeked out from her mother's embrace, and upon real— Daddy was still the same gentle Daddy. Her little face finally lit up with a smile again. The father-daughter bonding moment unexpectedly turning into a mother-daughter leisure time until lunch was ready. The delicious aroma filled the living room. After seeing me bring the dishes to the table, Bai Shihan silently returned to her lips moved slightly, but she couldn't say a word. As we ate, Nana suddenly turned her head, holding a small spoon in her mouth. Her little brows furrowed. Her face was full of confusion. "Mommy, why isn't Daddy eating with us?" Bai Shihan was chewing on a piece of stir-fried— It was her favorite dish. Before and after marriage, she rarely got to eat it because I couldn't handle spicy. Hearing her daughter's question, Bai Shihan unconsciously turned to look toward the side room. Then she turned back to her puzzled daughter. Suddenly she smiled, Her smile bloomed like a spring flower. Maybe because Daddy and Mommy aren't ready yet. The little one didn't understand. Her tiny brows furrowed even more. Her little head couldn't quite understand Mommy's words. Meanwhile, I was sitting in the bedroom. I knew that my sudden vomiting was due to psychological, but I couldn't change anything. Deep down, I kept trying to reassure myself that it wasn't my fault. But it didn't change the fact that I was him. Feeling helpless, I pulled out my phone, scrolling through videos to distract myself. My works were still topping the trending chart. Many of the comments were urging me to release a new song, but I had no such intention at the moment. Making money was a means, not an end. The videos were still generating revenue, even though that income would gradually decline. In just a few days, there might be no earnings at all. But for now, the money I had was more than enough for daily expenses. There was no need to release a new video just for me. At that moment, I heard the sound of dish. I put down my phone, pushed open the bedroom door, and stepped. The table still had a meal saved for me. In the kitchen, Bai Shihan was washing the dishes. Meanwhile, Nana had climbed onto the sofa, playing with her new toy. The doll I had given her earlier was now placed inside the princess, lying side by side on the tiny sofa inside the princess house. When she saw Dad come out, Nana was no longer as afraid as before. She just widened her big eyes and stared. The expectation in her gaze was clear. The little one just wanted Daddy to play with her and her toys. I smiled. Gently walking over, I stroked her small head, but I didn't sit down to play with her. Instead, I sat on the sofa, turning my head toward the kitchen. Seeing that Daddy wasn't playing with her, Nana pouted in disappointment. She leaned on the edge of the sofa before plopping down onto it, snuggling close to me as she continued playing on. Just then, Bai Shihan came out and saw me staring at her. She suddenly felt a wave of nervousness, her hands fidgeting, unsure where to place. She could only helplessly clutch the hem of her. Seeing Bai Shihan looking so timid and reserved, I couldn't help but frown. I sighed inwardly. It was precisely because of her gentle that the previous monster was able to bully her so fearlessly. Thinking of this, I relaxed my furrowed brow. I reached for the new phone I had just bought, placing it on the table. I bought you a phone. See if you like it. I also have something I want to discuss with you. Can you come sit down? Bai Shihan had been keeping her head down. Hearing my words, she finally lifted her head to look at me. The first thing she saw were my clear, bright eyes. Then she noticed the brand new phone box on the table. She hesitated for a moment. After a brief pause, she softly said, Slowly, she walked over to the sofa and said, "Is there something you want to discuss?" Her voice was so quiet that I had to strain my ears to hear her. I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up the phone and started unboxing it on my own. A brand new sky blue phone was taken out. I removed the protective cover and the pleasant startup sound rang out. After a quick setup, I placed it in front of This phone is for you. You'll need to get a SIM card yourself. I've already saved my number in it. If I'm not home in the future, you can call me if anything happens. As I spoke, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a stack of cash, placing it in front of her. This is the cash I just withdrew. Take the kid out for a stroll this afternoon. Staying at home all the time isn't good. Buy something if you want, especially clothes. I noticed that both of your clothes have gotten and get a bank card as well. Carrying cash around isn't safe or can. I rambled on, saying everything that was on my mind. Bai Shihan raised her head and stared intently at the man in front of her. Listening to my rambling word, her eyes gradually turned. Seeing that Bai Shihan hadn't taken the phone I helplessly touched my nose. Does she not like this phone? I thought the color was quite nice, and it was the latest model I just bought. If she doesn't like it, we can buy another one she likes. Bai Shihan shook her head, then gave me a deep look. I really like it, she said, still in a very soft voice. There was a slight tremor in her. Our eyes suddenly met. I awkwardly looked away, but I felt a sense of relief. As long as you like it, no need to thank me. I'm gonna eat first. After saying that, I stood up and quickly walked, digging into my food. Actually, Bai Shihan was still puzzled inside. Where did I get so much money to buy? But since I didn't say anything, she picked up the new phone on the table and glanced at it. Even the earphones I bought were placed neatly beside a pair of pure white in-ear headphones. On the other side, also put down her toy. Her small head leaned over, curiously looking at the new phone in her mother's hand. Bai Shihan naturally raised her hand and patted the little one's head. One big, one small. Both started studying the phone. At 5 p.m., the heat outside finally subsided. Bai Shihan sat on the sofa and hesitated for a while, but eventually picked up the money on the table, took Nainai's hand, and stepped. Nainai hadn't been outside for a very long time. She loved playing outdoors, but her mother never took her out before, and her father never allowed them, so this time she was extremely happy. The little girl held a doll in one hand, while her other hand held her mother's. skipping. Her big round eyes kept looking around curious. Everything outside felt completely. It was all so fresh and exciting, but Bai Shihan felt a bit uneasy. Her footsteps subconsciously quickened. Looking at the passers-by on the street, she suddenly felt a bit in fear, especially when she noted how ill-fitting both her and Nai Nai. It made her feel like people were staring. She felt as though strangers couldn't help glance. The mall wasn't far. She vaguely remembered it was just 2 streets away. It looked quite different from what she remembered. In just 2 years, the place had been renovated to look even more elegant. As soon as she walked in, she saw a phone store. There was a counter inside for purchasing SIM. Bai Shihan hesitated before leading her child inside. After buying a SIM card, Bai Shihan also opened a bank account. She deposited all the money she had into it. After paying for the SIM card, she had 4,009. I had given her exactly 5,000. Holding the phone and bank card, she walked out. Bai Shihan looked up at the towering buildings. For the first time in a long while, now she could take her child and leave. With the money in her hands, she could find a job to support herself and her child. She could even start chasing her dreams again. This sudden sense of freedom left Bai Shihan standing still for a long time, until a childish voice rang beside her ear. "Mommy, mommy, can Nai Nai have an ice cream?" She snapped back to reality. Beside her, Nai Nai was still holding her hand. Her big round eyes were staring directly at the nearby ice cream stand. Drool was almost dripping from the corner of her mouth. Bai Shihan laughed. Her smile was so bright and radiant. "You can, but just one. Too much and your tummy will hurt." "Okay, Nai Nai loves mommy the most." At last, this mother and daughter. Meanwhile, I was enjoying a nice, completely unaware of what was happening. It's possible they won't come. After taking a shower, I started preparing dinner for today. The usual 2 meat dishes and 2. I planned to make some noodle soup tonight, but since I didn't know when they would return, I was afraid the noodles would turn, so I didn't cook them right away. I cut the noodles and left them on the. Then I returned to the living room. I lay down on the sofa and started scrolling through until I got a bit drowsy from scrolling. I glanced at the time in the top. It was already 7 p.m. Why haven't the mother and daughter returned? I suddenly sat up straight. Could something have happened to them? I started feeling anxious. I was about to go out and look for them. Just as I opened the door, I ran into them, coming back from outside. A wave of fragrance drifted in through the doorway. I was completely stunned. At that moment, Bai Shi was humming an unknown tune. Her steps were light. The upward curve of her lips showed that she was in a very good mood. She was carrying several shopping bags in her hand. Nai Nai was holding onto the corner of her. In the other hand, she was still holding the doll I had given her. What stunned me the most was that they were both wearing new, well-fitted clothes. Indeed, clothes make the man saddle. After just one outing, they seemed to have completely transformed. They looked so different that I hesitated. In the next moment, Nai Nai sweetly, she called out, "Daddy." That one word almost made my soul fly away. Even my voice trembled as I responded. My initial tension immediately melted away. I picked up the adorable little one and walked into the house first. "Daddy will make you noodles tonight, okay? The kind with 2 eggs. Nai Nai likes eggs. Nai Nai loves Daddy the most." Outside the door, Bai Shihan stood in the wind. The little one had just said she loved Mommy the most. In the blink of an eye, Nai Nai didn't have to wait long. The noodles with eggs were quickly ready. I placed the bowl of noodles in front. I playfully tapped her little nose. Then, as usual, I turned around and headed. Just as I turned, I suddenly felt a small hand tugging at my pant leg. "Daddy, can you eat with Nai Nai?" Her soft and sweet voice rang out. I turned back. Her expectant gaze made me hesitate. I secretly glanced at Bai Shihan, who was sitting beside her. Bai Shihan neither spoke nor looked at me. She acted as if she hadn't heard Nai Nai. She just focused on eating her noodles. I was speechless. This situation was truly tricky. If she wanted to reject me, she should just. What did her silence even mean? I decided to test the waters. "Then I'll stay and eat with Nai Nai." "Daddy, sit next to Nai Nai." The one who answered me was. She happily patted the seat beside her. I rubbed my nose, feeling a bit awkward. I went to the kitchen, took a bowl of and sat down beside Nai Nai. Mommy sat on her left side. Daddy sat on her right side. For the first time, Nai Nai was surrounded by both. The smile on her face never faded. She even ate with extra enthusiasm. She finished the entire bowl of noodles, not a single strand left. In the end, it was Bai Shihan who stopped her from overeating. Only then did the little one finally stop. After dinner, Bai Shihan went back to the math. I could understand her reaction. Just allowing me to sit at the same table and eat must have already been a huge internal struggle for her. I tried to put myself in Bai Shihan's shoes. If it were me, and I had suffered the kind of mistreatment, yet was asked to live harmoniously with my enemy, I wouldn't be able to do it either. No, if it were me, The original perpetrator wouldn't even have a body left to find. I would have chopped them up and fed. I played with Nai Nai until 9 p.m. She was already so sleepy that her little head, but she still didn't want to go to bed. During this time, I realized a serious issue. Nai Nai is already 3 years old now, yet she still doesn't know how to take off her own shoes. Normally, by the age of 3, kids are already attending kindergarten. I knew that this was a result of her previous unstable. It wasn't something that could be right, but I still felt deeply worried. At that moment, Bai Shihan walked out of the bedroom. She didn't say anything. She just silently watched me and Nai Nai on the sofa. Her gaze was clear and direct. I picked up Nai Nai from the sofa. After giving her a kiss on her little face, I smiled and said, "It's bedtime. Daddy will play with you again tomorrow, okay?" Nai Nai's drowsy eyes opened slightly. She looked at my face. Then she turned to look at Bai Shihan. Suddenly, she buried her little head into my neck. "Nai Nai wants to sleep with Daddy." Her sudden words left me at a loss. Even Bai Shihan's face darkened slightly. The silence in the air was suffocating. I gave Bai Shihan an innocent look. This was her own idea, I swear. I didn't say anything to persuade. Bai Shihan clenched her fist slightly. This little traitor. After all my care, just 2 days, and she's already been won over by the enemy's sweet. In the end, the little one got her way. Bai Shihan helped her wash up briefly. Then she happily crawled into my bed. Like a little koala, she wrapped her arms around my neck tight. I let her hold on to me as much as it was my first time putting a child to. I suddenly remembered some parenting tips, so I gently told Nai Nai a bedtime story. This was also the first time Nai Nai slept in Daddy's warm embrace. The first time Daddy told Nai Nai a bedtime story. From the first time Daddy cooked for her to the first time Daddy bought her a gift. Now there were 2 more firsts. Nai Nai felt completely content. She quickly fell into a deep. The next morning, Nai Nai was still sleeping. I woke up early as usual. I carefully pushed open the bedroom door and walked into the living room. I was about to go for my morning. The next moment, I noticed that the ointment on the coffee table. My eyes lit up. A smile unconsciously spread across my face. I left the house in an unusually good mood today. After running, showering, I had spent a little over 2 hours. After finishing breakfast, I still had one more task, waking up my daughter. Nai Nai woke up to the sound of my. She rubbed her sleepy eyes. The moment she saw me, the little one stretched out her soft little arms. She was asking for a hug. I immediately reached out and gently picked her up. I helped her change into fresh clothes, then carried her out to wash up. I had watched videos on how to take care of children, but theory was just theory. Now that I was doing it for real, I realized how difficult it actually. The little one's body was so delicate. I didn't dare use too much, so everything I did felt clumsy and awkward, especially when it came to tying her hair. I felt even more helpless. After struggling, I ended up tying it in a lopsided ponytail. Daddy is such a dummy. Nai Nai pouted as she looked at her messy hair. She giggled and teased me. I pinched her little nose, which made her burst into soft laughter. At that moment, Bai Shihan walked, just seeing this warm moment between the. He didn't say anything. He just silently walked into the kitchen and brought out breakfast. Perhaps even he himself didn't realize that the corners of his mouth had already slightly lifted. After the 3 of us had a simple breakfast, I didn't return Nana to Bai Shihan. Instead, I continued to bring Nana to the sofa and played princess with her. Only this time, while playing with Nana, I unintentionally introduced some simple numbers into her little mind. Numbers from 1 to 10. After discovering Nana's issues, I secretly devised a plan to gradually teach Nana through daily play. Now, under my subtle guidance, she quickly remembered some of the knowledge. Moreover, I noticed that ever since Bai Shihan returned, he seemed like a completely different person. Although he was still silent, between his brows, there was an obvious newfound energy that wasn't there, just like how he didn't return to his bedroom but instead sat on the other side of the sofa, occasionally looking at us. This was a good sign. It made me feel much more at ease. While downloading various mobile apps, Bai Shihan was also observing the interaction. At that moment, she also that I was subtly teaching Nana. She watched quietly, a slight sweetness rising in her heart. She had always wanted to educate her child, but in the past, due to family, they were already struggling to survive. How could she have had to educate like a normal mother? The food delivery notification. Bai Shihan withdrew her gaze, and several apps had already finished download. As soon as Bai Shihan logged into her account, some unread messages popped up. They were from Tao Lele, her assistant of 2 years. She had very few people on her WeChat. Other than me, there were only a few former colleagues. The messages from Tao Le dated from the time of her marriage until just the messages kept coming without Most of them were asking about her, but she had never managed to reply. Looking at this string of messages, Bai Shihan felt a warmth in her heart. She immediately replied, "Sorry, Lile. I haven't been able to reply to your messages. I'm doing fine now. No need to worry." As soon as the message was, a reply came back within 2 seconds. "Sihan, you're finally alive. I thought after you got married, you didn't want to talk to me anymore. Sihan, you have no idea. Ever since you disappeared, rumors have been flying all over the company, especially that annoying Liu Qian. She's been acting so arrogant these past. She badmouths you to everyone, saying you deserved it. It's infuriating." Seeing Lile's messages, Bai Shihan's lips curled slightly. Liu Qian wasn't wrong. She really did deserve it. Back when she was at the company, she had always suppressed Liu Qian. Now that she had left the industry, it was only natural, but her little assistant was still as lively as ever. "Lile, how have you been lately? Is life treating you well?" Instead of responding to Lile's complaints, she asked about her well-being. "I'm doing great, Sihan, don't worry. I'm like an unbreakable cockroach. I just really miss you, Sihan. Will you make a comeback?" Bai Shihan was momentarily. A hint of longing flashed in her eyes. Would she return? She turned to look at me. Then at Nana. A moment later, the desire in her eyes slowly faded. "Probably not, but if you miss me, Lile, we can find a time to meet up." "Great, Sihan. I'm off this Saturday." Bai Shihan looked at this message. A smile finally appeared on her face. She then switched to Weibo. Her last post was from 2 years ago. It was the announcement of her retirement from the industry. Her once hundreds of thousands had now dwindled to just aside from inactive accounts, there were still some old fans who frequently left messages. She casually browsed the trending top. Most were about recent gossip, but among them, a few were discussing a newly viral song. A mysterious singer gained 1 million with just one video. Who is he? Bai Shihan was curious. What kind of song had become so popular recently? So she clicked on the article. The post was filled with long paragraphs. Praise from the blogger about the song. Attached at the bottom was a link. Bai Shihan clicked on the link. A familiar figure appeared on the screen. A familiar guitar melody played. Then a familiar voice echoed through the living room. The living room suddenly fell silent. Only the song continued to resonate in their ears. I awkwardly turned my head. Nana's big eyes fluttered. Then she threw herself into Bai Shihan. She looked at the phone screen. Bai Shihan was completely stunned. That familiar voice, wasn't it the song that had played from the room a few days ago? So that day, he was recording a video. It was Nana who spoke first. She pointed her tiny finger at the phone screen, then looked up at Bai Shihan. Her big eyes were filled with curiosity. "Daddy! Daddy is in the phone." "Yes, it's Daddy." Bai Shihan patted the little one's head. At that moment, she finally understood. That's why I had so much money to furnish them. With millions of likes already? How could he not have? She turned her head to look at me. My sharp profile. Her eyes were filled with a Nana, having received her mother, happily jumped back into my arms. Her tiny hands cupped my face. Her big eyes sparkled brightly. With her soft baby voice, she said, "Daddy, Nana wants to sing too. I want to be in the phone too." Her soft little hands pressed against her own face. My gaze gradually softened. I cupped her tiny face with my large hands. Gently I asked, "Nana, do you like singing?" Nana's big eyes curved into a smile as she nodded. My smile grew even brighter. "Great! Then Daddy will teach Nana to sing. When Nana learns it, we'll record it on the phone, okay?" Nana eagerly nodded her little head. Then happily she leaned in and planted a big kiss. Receiving this reward, I beamed with joy. Under the admiring gaze of the little one, I quickly ran back to the bedroom and grabbed my guitar. Returning to the sofa, I adjusted the strings of the guitar. When I turned my head, I saw that both Bai Shihan and Nana were staring at me, unblinking. A rare blush crept onto my face. Then I gently strummed the string. "Today, Daddy will create a special song just for Nana. Daddy will sing it first for Nana to hear. The next time Daddy will sing one line, and Nana will sing along, okay?" Nana nodded excitedly, her little arms tightly wrapped around my neck. "Daddy!" "Nana likes this, Daddy. Daddy, don't go back to how you were before, okay?" Her soft, fragile voice echoed in my ear. I parted my lips but suddenly my vision blurred. I held Nana tightly in my arms. "Daddy will never be like that again." My voice was hoarse but firm. Bai Shihan couldn't see my expression at that moment, but her face was already covered in tears. Yet there was a smile on her lips. I was the first to pull myself together. I set the guitar aside. Then I lifted Nana onto my lap. "Nana, let's start learning the song now." I'll sing a line. You follow Daddy and sing along, okay? Okay. Nana quickly agreed. From that moment on, it became a singing lesson between father and I sang a line slowly, and Nana followed along. Songs truly sound better when sung by children. The lyrics coming from Nana's mouth were far more charming than mine. For the entire morning, our singing filled the living room. Seeing how immersed we were in the lesson, Bai Shihan silently started preparing lunch, but her cooking skills were clearly not as good as mine. During the meal, Nana kept insisting that from now on, she only wanted to. This made Bai Shihan jealous. As she playfully rolled her eyes, she was secretly fuming. This little traitor! Only 2 days, and she's already been. Nana learned very quick. In just 3 days, her singing was even better than the original. At Nana's strong request, I recorded a video of her and uploaded it online. In the video, Nana was wearing a pink princess dress. A bow sat on her head. Her tiny body swayed gently with the music. She was absolutely adorable. While filming, my face was beaming with joy. Every inch of my expression screamed, "This is my daughter." Bai Shihan, watching from the side, happened to glance at my expression. She almost choked, trying. This was the first time she had seen me like this. Over the past 3 days, because of my good behavior, my relationship with Bai Shihan had significant. At the very least, she would now actively say a few words to me. No one expected that. The second video on my lost memory account would be a children's song. It was still an original composition and just as good as the first. As expected, this video gained even more popularity, and in just one afternoon, the video received 5 million. The number of comments was even more overwhelming. The next morning, as soon as I finished, I wiped off my sweat and I was immediately greeted by the sight of Bai Shihan wearing a newly bought spaghetti, stepping out of the bathroom. She had clearly just taken a She was drying her hair, her face flushed from the heat. The nightgown seemed a little too big, and I could vaguely see her fair skin underneath. This was the second I had accidentally seen her after a shower. For a moment, we just stared at each other, and Bai Shihan instinctively covered. Her face turned even redder. Even her earlobes were flushed. Even though we had been, this moment felt like we were newly in love. Morning. Bai Shihan tried her best to stay calm, greeting me, but her steps toward the bedroom quickened. Morning, I replied simply. She didn't say anything else. Like a frightened rabbit, she dashed back to her. I chuckled helplessly, humming a tune as I walked into the bath. Shower, breakfast, waking Nana up, my usual morning routine. Just then, Bai Shihan emerged from her bedroom. She had changed into a fresh outfit. She looked youthful and vibrant, so that no one would guess she was the mother of a 3-year-old. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but stare for a moment. I nodded slightly. This is the energy a woman in her 20s should have, but she's still too thin. If she were a bit fuller, she'd look even better. Bai Shihan still seemed a little nervous. Her cheeks were slightly red. This was the first time she had dressed like this. She wasn't sure if it looked good. She glanced at me, still busy taking care of Nana. Then she quietly sat down at the dining table. Just now, his eyes seemed to light up. That means it does look good, right? Wait. Why do I even care about his opinion? Bai Shihan puffed up her cheeks in frustration. She absent-mindedly stirred her food with her chops. She was annoyed at herself for being so. Just then, Nana sweetly called out, "Mommy." Then she picked up her small spoon, scooping up the golden millet porridge. Can you come out with us today? I was enjoying my breakfast, but when I suddenly heard Bai Shihan, I looked up at her. Then I pointed to my nose, asking in confusion, "Me?" Bai Shihan nodded. She didn't look at me, but her ears. Sure, I agreed enthusiastically. So after breakfast, the 3 of us walked from our neighborhood to the street. The heads of passersby turned one after. Our family was attracting 100% attention. Everyone was captivated by our look. At the same time, they were curious. Since when did such a gorgeous family live here? Why have we never seen them before? Nana held on to Daddy's hand and Mommy's with the other. She hopped along cheerfully. Her little face was full of joy. She had never imagined that one day she could go out holding both her parents' hands, just like other kids. At this moment, her happiness felt too big to fit inside her. Even though the weather was a bit hot outside, none of the 3 of us seemed to notice. The smiles on our faces said it all. We were all in a good mood. I hailed a taxi on the road. First, I carefully lifted Nana in. Then, like a gentleman, I held the door for Bai Shi, closing it behind her. Finally, I got into the front passenger seat. Today, we were heading to Yida Plaza in the city center. Bai Shihan had arranged to meet her former assistant at a milk tea shop there. The reason she brought Nana and me along was simply because Lile wanted to meet the little one. And for the past few days, Nana had been glued to my side, refusing to leave me. So I was purely benefiting from Nana's presence. The car drove along the road. It would take at least 40 minutes to get to the city. Nana clung to Bai Shihan's neck, gazing at the scenery flashing past. For the little one, this was her first time going on a long. Everything was new, and the taxi driver, after marveling at our family's good looks, suddenly felt that the little one in the back seat looked familiar. He just couldn't remember where he had seen her before. So he started chatting with me, and I, naturally sociable, engaged in. The atmosphere in the car became lively. Before long, we arrived at our destination, the busiest area in Zhongcheng's city center. It was not far from where Tao Lele worked and lived. After 2 years, she was finally about to see Sihan. Tao Lele was feeling excited. She had already bought a few cups of milk tea. Sitting at her seat, she kept her eyes fixed on the entrance, waiting eagerly. She had worked with Bai Shihan for a year and a half, but the two were as close as sisters. Bai Shihan had always treated her very well, but unfortunately, Bai Shihan got married. She still didn't understand why Sihan had to marry that man, a man who seemed completely useless. She couldn't figure it out. Back then, Bai Shihan was completely determined, refusing to listen to any advice. Lily was lost in thought when suddenly she spotted a familiar figure, holding hands with a bouncing little girl, walking into the shop. Her eyes lit up. She immediately stood up and waved excitedly. Sihan, over here. Hearing the voice, Bai Shihan looked up and saw Lele waving her hands. A smile unconsciously spread across her face. Lily really hadn't changed at all. She was still as lively and cheerful. As they got closer, both of their eyes glistened, filled with excitement and warmth. Long-separated sisters reunite. They could hardly contain their emotions. Tao Lele rushed toward Bai Shihan in Are your eyes even redder? She grabbed Bai Shihan's hand. Her small lips quivered. Shihan, you've lost so much weight. Is that man treating you badly? Where is he? I'll teach him a lesson. Bai Shihan pursed her lips. She shook her head and sat down with Tao Lele. She also placed Nainai beside her. Only then did she speak. Lele, don't worry. I'm doing fine now. What about you? Is your job going well since I left? I'm doing well too. Shihan, you don't know how much I've missed you. The two asked about each other's recent lives. Nainai, her big eyes curiously stared at her little aunt. Her eyes were full of curiosity. The sisters hadn't seen each other for a long. Naturally, there was much to talk about. After chatting for a while, Tao Lele finally turned her gaze to the little one. The little one had been sitting quietly by the side. Tao Lele was too focused on Bai Shihan to know she hadn't taken a good look at him. Now that she did, her eyes lit up immediately. Wow! Shihan, is this Nainai? He looks just like you. So cute. She spoke while getting up from her seat. She crouched in front of the little. Her eyes sparkled. She reached out and gently touched his little face. Then her brows furrowed slightly. The little one, just like Shihan, was also a demon beast. Tao Lele suddenly felt furious inside. She was sure of it. That good-for-nothing man must have mistreated Shihan and the child. Thinking back, Shihan used to be well-nourished when she was with her. How could she be like this now? The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She wished so she looked up at Bai Shihan. Shihan, didn't you say he would come too? Where is he? Bai Shi? Han could also sense Tao Lele's hostility towards. He just didn't know how to explain. Should he say that he had changed? Wouldn't that be the same as admit that he had treated her poorly? But this was something he didn't want anyone to, especially not Tao Lele, who was like a sister to him. He could only smile awkwardly. Nainai wanted ice cream, so he went to stand in line to buy some for the child. Tao Lele naturally noticed Bai Shihan's expression. She immediately had some thoughts. Shihan had always been gentle and reserved. But now, within that there was also a hint of timidity. She could feel it. Not wanting to scare the child, Tao Lele could only snort coldly and return to her seat. But deep down, she was gritting her teeth in anger. Shihan, Tao Lele was about to speak, but suddenly she paused. Her gaze sharpened. She looked toward the milk tea shop and Bai Shihan was taken aback. Her expression became even more off. She thought that her presence was causing Lele's hostility. Just as she was about to turn around, a somewhat sly voice sounded from behind her. Tao Lele, you still have time to drink milk tea. Have you finished the work I assigned you? Liu Qian, will you ever stop? Today is my day off. Tao Lele's face darkened. Like a startled little cat, she glared fiercely at the speaker. Bai Shihan turned around. Only then did she see the new. It was a slender woman. She wore a baseball cap. Her face was partially hidden behind. Her long, narrow eyes flashed with a hint of gold. Upon seeing Bai Shihan, she raised an eyebrow. Liu Qian? Bai Shihan was stunned. She was once a popular singer from the same company. She had taken the path of a talented vocalist. However, back then, Liu Qian was always overshadowed by Bai Shihan. Back when Bai Shihan was at she used to sweetly call me Sister Shihan, but now people move on. Bai Shihan understood this reality, so she never paid much attention. Well, if it isn't Sister Shihan, shouldn't you be staying at home, being a good wife and mother? What are you doing here with Lile? Liu Qian smirked, but her words were full of sarcasm. She had just come out for a casual. She hadn't expected to run into Tao Lele and Bai Shihan. Before Bai Shihan could respond, Tao Lele had already erupted in anger. Liu Qian, mind your own business. It's not a work day today. Spare me your passive-aggressive nonsense. Shihan, let's go. There's a mad dog barking here. It's ruining our mood. After saying that, Tao Lele picked up and grabbed Bai Shihan's hand, ready to leave. But Liu Qian quickly stepped in front of them, her gaze turning cold. She looked at Bai Shihan, raised an eyebrow and sneered. Sister Shihan, why are you so thin? Having a hard time, are you? If you need help, just say the word. I might be able to throw you a bone, because I'm so kind. Look, Lila is working under me now. She seems to be doing fine. Isn't that right, Lila? Tao Lele's face turned pale. She said nothing and simply glared. Bai Shihan suddenly turned to look at Tao Lele, her eyes full of disbelief. Lele was working under Liu Qian. Hadn't she said she was still an assistant? And that work was going well. After all, working as an errand runner was nothing but exhausting labor. How could the company make Lele do this? But now wasn't the time to ask. Bai Shihan turned back to Liu Qian, her gaze burning with anger. She could endure being bullied herself. But seeing Lele mistreated was just as she was about to speak, Tao Lele spoke up first. My contract with the company expires at the end of. When the time comes, I just hope that some people don't climb too high, only to fall. If Sister Shihan makes a comeback, some people might wake up screaming from. Liu Qian was stunned upon. She did indeed feel a shadow looming. After all, back then Bai Shihan had completely outshined her but Liu Qian quickly sneered. She looked at Bai Shihan with a contemptuous gaze. A comeback? That's the funniest joke I've ever heard. Which company would dare a washed-up artist with a child? Speaking of the child, Bai Shihan, your kid looks pretty good. You might consider raising him to be the next rising star. Liu Qian spoke with utter disdain. She even shamelessly reached out, trying to pinch Nainai's assistant. Take your filthy hand away from him. I swear, if you dare touch him, I'll make sure you have nowhere to cry. Two voices rang out at the same time. One was Bai Shihan's. The other was a deep male voice. It came from me, standing at the. I quickly walked over to Bai Shihan, handing the ice cream to the three of them. I then turned to Liu Qian, shielding Bai Shihan and Nainai behind me. I spoke coldly, and who are you? Liu Qian flinched in surprise. Instinctively, she took 2 steps back. But then she steadied herself. When she looked at me closely, she suddenly laughed. Oh, it's just this pretty boy, a useless piece of trash. I thought it was So it's you, huh? What? Are you planning to hit someone in public? I frowned slightly and turned to Bai Shihan. My gaze was questioning. It was clear I was asking her, who is this lunatic? She was a singer at my former company. I didn't expect to run into her here. I was furious. Maybe others, but Bai Shihan seemed a little scared. Seeing Bai Shihan like this, I furrowed my brows even more. Inside, I let out a sigh. I turned my head and looked down at Liu Qian. Excuse me. I've never heard of you, and I don't know you. I only know that you're blocking our way. Please step aside. I spoke seriously, leaving no room for criticism. But to Liu Qian, my words were deeply insulting. Her voice turned even sharper. Ha! You should know your own worth. Do you really think I don't? How you've been sucking up to Gao Cheng and Xu Bin from the boy band Flower Boys. You've been buying them drinks every day. And now you're here pretending to be some big shot? I thought about those 2 names carefully. Finally, I remembered who they were. They were former members of the boy band I used. After leaving the industry, I had tried to I had often treated them to drinks, hoping, but they never even acknowledged me. That was my past. It had nothing to do with me now. I don't know those 2 very well. And thanks, but good dog. If you keep pestering us, don't blame me for calling security. Yida Plaza, being in Jiang City, would never allow troublemaker. Liu Qian was stunned. She shot me a venomous glare, cursing me in her heart. But she still reluctantly stepped aside. I grabbed Bai Shihan's hand and signaled for Tao Lele to follow as we walked straight. But just as we passed by Liu Qian, she suddenly spoke to Bai Shihan. Oh, what a shame. Someone here will never be able to sing again. Bai Shihan, my new song will be released at the end of this month. Ha! After saying this, Liu Qian laughed triumphantly. How can Bai Shihan compare to? Liu Qian's voice echoed in our ears. Tao Lele was so furious that she wanted to slap her. She knew how much Shihan loved singing. But now she couldn't sing. Her words were like a dagger to the heart. I paused for a moment. I gave Lucian a deep glance, then expressionlessly continued walking away. Bai Shihan didn't say a word. She only pursed her lips slightly. However, a young, innocent voice suddenly rang out. Clear and firm it declared, "Mom sings better than you. You're a bad auntie." It was Nai. She waved her tiny hand, her lips pouting. Her little face was full of anger. "Mom's singing is the best." Nai had heard her mother sing lullabies before. They were even better than Dad's. Everyone was stunned. No one had expected this little one to speak up for her mother. I was surprised, for just then smiled and ruffled the little one's hair. "Well done. That's my daughter. She's much fiercer than her pushover mom." I had been feeling irritated, but the moment Nai, all my frustration vanished. My heart and eyes were now completely on her. Ignoring Lucian's reaction, we left. By noon, we had taken the little cutie to a restaurant. Holding the child, I was the first to step in, welcomed by the staff. Bai Shihan and Tao Lele continued chatting behind me. It was obvious that Tao Lele didn't like me. She would roll her eyes at me from time. If I hadn't acted decently earlier, she wouldn't have even bothered acknowledging me. Once we sat down, I handed the menu to Bai Shihan and Tao Lele. After they ordered a few simple dishes, I added a few of Nai's favorite foods before passing the menu to the waiter. Bai Shihan continued talking with Tao Lele. While we were walking, there were things on her mind she hadn't asked about. Now that we were seated and no outsiders were around, she reached out and held Tao. He finally asked the question he had always wanted to ask. "Lele, why are you working as an assistant? And what about Sister Yun? What is she doing now?" Sister Yun was Bai Shihan's former agent. She is almost 40 years old. She had always treated him well, like a daughter. Hearing Bai Shihan's question, Tao Luo's expression dimmed with sadness. "After you left, Sister Yun was dismissed not long after. She searched for a job for a long time. Later, her mother fell ill and was hospitalized. She had to stay in the hospital to take care of her mother, so she could only find work as a nanny." Bai Shihan didn't expect that Sister Yun had fallen to such a situation. His vision blurred slightly. He could vaguely see Sister Yun's decisive and efficient figure. Both of them fell silent. The atmosphere was heavy. After talking about Sister Yun, and Tao Lele had lost their appetite for dinner. After finishing the meal, Tao Luo talked with Bai Shihan for a while longer, then hurriedly left. Bai Shihan remained in a low mood. Originally, the three of them had planned to take Grandma to the amusement, but now he had no mood for fun at all. I could naturally sense his emotions. I wanted to say something, but in the end, I remained silent. Honestly, I didn't understand. Why did Bai Shihan seem like he was under some spell back then? So determined to marry you. Bai Shihan wanted to go home. He wanted to be alone. But when he saw Nana's expectant eyes, he hesitated. To avoid disappointing Nana, in the end, the three of them still went to the amusement. The little one was very happy. It was her first time at an amusement park. She grabbed my hand and rushed inside, so excited that I couldn't. At this moment, Bai Shihan forced himself to cheer up. He didn't want Nana to remember her first amusement park visit. We started with the carousel, then we took Nana to play Snail Agent Squad. After that, we tried several other rides. Before we knew it, the sky had darkened. The amusement park lit up with colorful lights. A castle, straight out of a fairy tale, gradually appeared before us. The sight of the castle instantly captured Nana. She stared at it without blinking. Her big eyes were full of excitement. Perhaps she was wondering if one day she could also live in a castle like a princess. The last ride was the Ferris. Each cabin could seat 2 people, but 3 people could also sit together. As I carried Nana and entered the cabin with Bai Shihan, she had already fallen asleep. If it weren't for the upcoming fireworks show, Bai Shihan and I would have taken the little one home. The Ferris wheel rose slowly. What I didn't know was, this was also Bai Shihan's first time at an amusement park. Even more so, his first time riding a Ferris. His bright eyes curiously observed the view outside. They sparkled with fascination. He gazed out the window while I looked at him. Perhaps sensing my gaze, his earlobes gradually turned red. He glanced at me shyly. I had never seen that look before. It caught me off guard. In the next moment, from every corner of the castle, fireworks shot up into the sky all at once. At that exact moment, I saw Bai Shihan's face light up with a breathtaking smile. It was a smile from the heart. I was mesmerized. By then, the Ferris wheel had reached its peak. The fireworks became even clearer. Bai Shihan's delicate face became even more. You don't have to be afraid, like before. My voice was light amidst the sound of fireworks. Bai Shihan didn't hear me clearly. He turned his face to look at me. I didn't look at him. I kept watching the dazzling fireworks in the sky. You're too gentle, and that's not good. People will take advantage. You don't have to be afraid like before. I know. You want to sing. I also know that you have many things you want to do. Go ahead without worry. I'll take care of Nana. Bai Shihan didn't respond. I turned my face, only to see two streams of tears already. He pressed his lips together, staring at me without blinking. His eyes were filled with intense grievance and It felt like they were about to drown. I suddenly became nervous. Why did he suddenly start crying? Who are you? Bai Shihan stared at me intently. His almond-shaped eyes were misted with tears. His crisp voice wasn't loud, but it echoed clearly in my heart. I remained silent, the air growing heavy. Even the sound of the fireworks seemed to fade. After a long moment, I smiled at him gently. Then I spoke, my voice suddenly a little hoarse. I am Jiang Chengyi. Bai Shihan continued to stare at me. He felt his heartbeat suddenly go out of rhythm, like a deer frantically crashing. My answer was something he hadn't expected. Sniffling, he looked at me. His clear, glistening eye filled with even more tears that fell even. He hugged his knees and buried his head. Sobbing softly, I said, "Let me tell you a story. There was once a little girl in an orphanage. She was very timid, but in the orphanage, there was always a boy, 1 year older, who protected her. One day, she was bullied by a group of older boys. That boy shielded her behind him. He never let her suffer even the slightest harm. At that time, in her eyes, that older brother, just 1 year her senior, was her. But after that, the brother disappeared. Until she grew up, she met him again. And as she had always wished, she married. After hearing this, she was I finally understood some things. Bai Shihan lifted his head, his eyes misty with. He looked so lonely and pitiful. Finally, he voiced the secret hidden in his heart. No one understood his stubbornness. Everyone thought his suffering wasn't worth. Only he believed that it was. But in the end, the outcome was so bad. He had regretted it countless times. Until now, when I appeared, that was enough. Bai Shihan couldn't hold it in any. He threw himself into my arms, competing with Nana for a spot in my embrace. He sobbed softly. Nana woke up, her sleepy eyes blinked, confused to see her mother, taking over her usual spot. The little one was stunned for a moment. Then happily, she wrapped one arm around her dad and the other around her mom. She gave us each a big kiss on the cheek. Today was the happiest day of Nana's life. Looking at the two beauties in my arms, I was momentarily speechless. Life was moving in a good direction. That was enough, but some plans would have to change. The fireworks gradually faded. The Ferris wheel slowly descended to the ground. After getting off the Ferris wheel, Bai Shihan left my embrace. In an instant, he seemed to return to his usual cold. Was it really the same who had just been crying? Was he a ghost or something? Bai Shihan felt nervous inside. Even as he held Nana, his hands were tense. He felt his ears and cheeks heating up. Just now, he had stayed in my arms for so long, like a little girl, rubbing against me in my arms. How embarrassing. Just think. Bai Shihan subconsciously quickened his pace, as if he was speed walking. I had no idea where this sudden energy came from. I had to jog just to keep up with him, until we reached the amusement park exit. Even then, Bai Shihan showed no sign of stopping. I had no choice but to call out, "Hey, are you planning to walk all the way home? Let's just take a cab here." Only then did Bai Shihan stop. He stood by the roadside, but refused. When we got home, I carried Nana to her room and tucked her in. By the time I came out, Bai Shihan was already in the bath. I didn't linger. I went straight to the kitchen. He barely ate anything at lunch. He must be starving now. Thinking this, I rummaged through the fridge. In the end, I decided to keep it simple. A bowl of noodles would do. Bai Shihan was indeed very hungry. He had no appetite at lunch. Then he played for hours in the and even cried in the evening. Now his stomach was growling. After a quick wash-up, he was about to go make something to eat. But as soon as he stepped out of the bath, he saw me already busy in the kitchen. A warmth spread through Bai Shihan's heart. He casually sat down on the sofa. But his gaze never left the figure in that tall, slender silhouette. Surprisingly, the thought suddenly popped into Bai Shihan. The next moment, he covered his face. He couldn't believe himself. What was going on today? He was a mother, for heaven's sake. Why was he acting like a teenage girl from Bai Shihan? You're getting more and more embarrassing. Dinner's ready. I brought out the bowl of noodles, only to see him curled up awkwardly on the sofa. The bowl of noodles? I didn't think much about it. I simply called out softly. Hearing my voice, Bai Shihan visibly tensed up. Then, as if nothing had happened, He removed his hands. He nodded slightly and walked to the dining table. His delicate face was slightly, but he lowered his head and ate as if nothing was. In just a short while, Bai Shihan had finished the entire bowl of noodles. Not even a drop of soup was left. He put down his chopsticks, but he didn't get up. He just sat there quietly. Only when I finished eating and got up to clear the table did he suddenly stand up in a fluster. He quickly grabbed the dishes and said, "Let me do it." His voice was still soft, but it was pleasant to hear. So, he had been waiting for me all along. I didn't argue with him. We were family after all. There was no need to be so formal. After taking a relaxing hot shower, I came out to find that Bai Shihan. I turned off the lights, then quickly headed to my own room. Tonight was the latest I had stayed since coming to this world. At 6 a.m., early risers were already starting their day. As usual, I woke up on time, morning run, washing up, cooking, waking Nana up, everything as usual. By then, Bai Shihan had also gotten up. His face was slightly flushed as he walked through the living room to the bath. "Do you still want to sing?" Hearing my voice, Bai Shihan froze slightly. He didn't respond for a long. Leaning against the bathroom door frame, I quietly waited for his answer. After a moment, his soft voice finally reached my ears. "Yes." Just one word. No further explanation. In Bai Shihan's heart, his life now was something he had never dared to dream, but singing was a distant dream. One that could only be. I didn't ask any further. I just nodded slightly, then took my phone and returned. I opened my account's message inbox and started. My inbox had been flooded for a long time. Ever since I posted my first video, I only skimmed through the message but never checked them again. Now, trying to find something specific, still I kept scrolling patiently, filtering through them one by one. Finally, my eyes lit up. I immediately clicked on one particular message. Reading its content, Yinhai Entertainment sincerely invites you to join our. With your musical talent, we will turn you into a top tier in the shortest time possible. At the end of the message was Yinhai Entertainment's contact. I hesitated no longer. I dialed the number. The phone rang only before it was answered. A mature woman's voice came through the receiver. "Hello, may I ask who this is?" "Hello, my account name is Amnesia. I received an invitation message from your company. Would it be convenient to talk now?" At that moment, far away in Modu, at the headquarters of Doying, Yang Chenglin received the call. For a moment, she was. Then, her face instantly lit up with joy. "Hello, Mr. Amnesia. Are you considering joining Yinhai Entertainment?" Yang Chenglin felt secretly thrilled, but she still responded quickly. However, my answer left Yang Chenglin momentarily stunned. "Hello, Director Yang. Apologies. I don't have any plans to enter the entertainment industry, but I would like to recommend a singer to you. Would your company be interested?" Hearing this, Yang Chenglin couldn't help but feel disappointed. What she wanted was Amnesia, a name already famous, whose 2 songs had taken the internet by storm. "Mr. Amnesia, here's the situation. I'm just the deputy director. If it were you joining us, with your reputation, I could make the decision myself. But if it's someone else, I'm afraid I don't have the authority to approve it directly. I can assure you, he's a very talented singer, and I will write songs for him. Additionally, if your company ever needs songs in the future, I can work with Yinhai Entertainment as a songwriter. But there will be conditions. Not just anyone can come to me for songs. If I don't approve of them, if you agree, we can discuss the details further. What do you think?" I spoke calmly over the phone. Yang Chenglin was tempted, but she wasn't the sole decision maker. She had to get approval. "This isn't a decision I can make alone. How about this? I'll discuss it with the company and get back to you. Regardless of the outcome, I'll give you a response as soon as." "All right, I look forward to your reply." After hanging up the phone, I opened the door and stepped out of the guest room. Nana was still playing with her toys, quietly muttering something under her breath. Bai Shihan had already finished fresh. He was sitting at the dining table, eating. Just then, there was a sudden knock on the door. Hearing the sound, I looked at Bai Shihan in confusion, only to find that Bai Shihan was looking back at me with the same puzzle. Both of us were orphans. No one had ever come to visit us. Who could it be? The knocking continued, and it was getting louder. Clearly, the person outside was getting impatient. They were knocking harder. I got up and was about to open the door, but before I could, the person outside suddenly shouted, "Xiaojiang, open the door. I know you're home. It's me, Brother Gao. Are you texting us every day to drink? We are here now and your brother Shu is here too. Open the door." Hearing these 2 annoying voices, my face completely darkened. Bai Shihan's face also turned grim, frowning, looking towards the door with disgust. Nai Nai had already put down the toy, running straight into Bai Shihan's arm. The loud knocking on the door scared him. When I turned my head, I happened to see my face darkened even more. I even exuded a murderous aura. I had been coaxing him for finally managing to calm my little baby. And these two relatives dared to unforgivable. I opened the door, waving my hand in a shooing gesture. If you have something to say? After saying that, I didn't wait for Gao Cheng and I grabbed each of them and dragged them outside. By the time Gao Cheng and Xu Bin realized, they were furious and tried to break free. But they soon realized my strength was shocking. No matter how they struggled, I dragged them all the way outside to the community court. Only then did I let go. Go back to wherever you came from. Gao Cheng and Xu Bin's faces were already red with anger. They had sworn to Sister Qian that they would succeed. They never expected to be, but my strength just now had shocked them. For a moment, they didn't dare to act. Aren't you curious why we came to find you? Gao Cheng asked. Xu Bin, seemingly afraid I would refuse, quickly followed up. We came to invite you back to the boy band. Didn't you always want to return? You even said Bai Shihan ruined your career. Now we can help you come back. But you have to divorce Bai Shihan. Simple, right? I glanced at them. Are you done talking? If so, get lost. Seeing you two makes me sick. I'm about to throw up my food. Go back and tell your master. Tell him to stop trying to mess with Bai Shi. Otherwise, haha. After finishing, I ignored those two. I turned around and walked back. Watching my departing figure, Gao Cheng and Xu Bin's faces turned red and blue. What they thought was an easy task ended up backfiring on them. However, since they had already Xu Bin was still unwilling to Gao Ge, are we just letting him go like this? Gao Cheng responded irritably. Otherwise, what? Why does it feel like he suddenly changed? He's so much stronger. Forget it. Since we didn't succeed, we'll just have to think of another way next time. Xu Bin sighed in frustration. The two turned and left. I, on the other hand, walked home cheerfully. As soon as I arrived, the little ones at home all breathed a sigh of, they're gone. They won't be coming back, I said lightly. Then I reached out to pick up Nana and sat on the sofa. Seeing me acting so casually, playing with Nana's toys, Bai Shihan finally turned around and continued eating. The warmth of home returned. That small disturbance was quickly forgotten. But unlike my side, Gao Cheng and Xu Bin were in a terrible state. Not only had I humiliated them, but Liu Qian had also scolded them harshly. They had promised Liu Qian that they could convince me only to end up getting thrown out. This made them hate me even more. As the evening approached, Bai Shihan took Nana out to buy groceries. Alone at home, I received a call from Rainy Yang. As soon as I picked up, her pleasant and mature voice rang out. Mr. Amnesia, we've reached a decision. We can let your recommended person join the company, but management still wants to see more of your compositions. Would that be convenient for you? I didn't think too much. Immediately I said composing, right? Sure. My response was straightforward. My mind holds the culture of an entire world. Naturally, I had no fear of any challenge. Rainy Yang had been quite anxious, but hearing me agree so readily, she couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. She had been running around all day for this. She really liked the 2 songs I had composed. She believed in my talent. But the higher-ups still had doubts. After all, no one knew how long it had taken me to create those 2 songs. Perhaps they were the result of years of effort. It was possible I had only managed after struggling for a very long time. If I could resolve this challenge, the company would no longer doubt me. Can we meet in person to discuss the details? We still need you to come over. We need you to compose and write lyrics on this, Rainy Yang said sincerely. She also wanted to meet this mysterious person in person. After all, in all his videos, he never once showed his face. I thought about it for a moment. Other than taking care of I didn't have much else to do it. All right, what time? Where? In Shanghai. If possible, it'd be best if you came to the sooner, the better for you. Hearing this, I couldn't help but develop a better impression of this mature woman. After all, few people would consider others' interests. Most would prioritize the company. All right, tomorrow then. Seeing me agree so decisively, Rainy Yang let out a deep sigh of relief. Her tone became noticeably more relaxed. Let me know the exact time. Just send me a text. This number will work. I'll pick you up on time tomorrow. All right, I agreed. The call ended. Then I started checking flights to Shanghai. I finally booked a flight for 10 a.m. tomorrow. I closed my eyes to rest. By the time Bai Shihan returned with Nana, she saw me sleeping soundly. She quickly put her finger to her lip, gesturing to Nana to stay quiet. Bai Shihan quietly carried the groceries into the kitchen. Nana walked over to the sofa and gently nestled into my arms. In my dreams, it felt like a little cat was rubbing against my face. Its soft little paws brushed against my skin. It was so comfortable. Suddenly, the little cat placed its tiny paws over my nose. I couldn't breathe. I woke up with a start. Nana's giggles echoed in my ears. It turned out to be my precious daughter. Daddy, it's time to— All right, I smiled warmly. I suddenly felt that this kind of life was on the table. There was a plate of shredded potato and a bowl of tomato and egg soup. It looked so appetizing. Bai Shihan walked out of the kitchen, carrying 2 bowls of rice. He glanced at me and said softly, "I saw you were still, so I made dinner. It's not as good as yours, but I tasted it, and it's not bad." I picked up Nana in my arms and stood up. "I think it looks great. The color, aroma, and it's making me hungry." Hearing my compliment, Bai Shihan blushed slightly. The family ate together. I looked at Bai Shihan and said, "By the way, I need to go out tomorrow. I'm not sure how many days I'll be gone." Hearing my words, Bai Shihan suddenly choked, coughing uncontrollably. I quickly handed him a tissue. Concerned, Bai Shihan took the tissue. Hearing my sudden announcement, he felt a little flustered. He didn't know if he should ask where I was going, even though just a week ago he had wanted to run. Now that he heard I was leaving, he instinctively felt a little reluctant. It was Nana who finally asked, "Daddy, where are you going?" Nana pouted, her face full of reluctance. "Daddy is going to find a job for Mommy. This way, you'll be able to hear Mommy sing more often." "Are you happy?" Nana was still young. She didn't really understand what a job, but in her memory, she often heard Mommy sing. So she was very happy. "Mommy will sing for Nana all the time?" she asked sweetly. I gently ruffled her little head. Then I looked at Bai Shihan. "Sorry. I didn't ask your opinion before deciding for you, but Nana said you love singing. I figured that must be true. I didn't mention it before because nothing was confirmed, but now the company wants to meet me. If things go well, you'll be able to pursue your dream openly and continue singing. Yinhai Entertainment seems like a great choice. I want you to sing." Bai Shihan instinctively looked at me. Our eyes met. Her almond-shaped eyes suddenly welled up with tears. Her eyes turned slightly red. "Thank you, Zhang Chengyi. I love singing." I quickly responded, "No need to thank me. As long as you're happy." The next day, I took a flight to Shanghai. As soon as I got off the plane, I could feel the city's— I looked at the crowd holding signs outside. I searched for my name among them. Before coming, I had arranged a meeting with Rainy Yang. She was supposed to pick me up but there were too many people holding signs. Many of them were fans waiting for celebrities. It took me a long time to find her. Finally, I spotted a tall woman in a professional suit. She truly fit the image of an— I could only say, her voice matched. I quickly walked toward her, waving my hand. "Are you Minister Yang?" "I'm she. Real name Zhang Chengji. Sorry to keep you waiting." Rainy Yang looked at the person in front, a hint of surprise flashing in her eyes. She knew I was young, but she didn't expect me to be this young. And I had the kind of face perfect for a celebrity. Rainy Yang thought, if only I could sign him. "Hello, I'm Rainy Yang. I just arrived not long ago myself." She kept a professional smile. "Let's go this way. It's too crowded here." I parked my car in the underground lot. "It's mealtime now. Let's find a place to eat first." In Shangtan, the two of us arrived at a specialty restaurant. After ordering, as we waited for the food, she finally got down to business. "I'll just call you Mr. Zhang. Mr. Zhang, may I ask who you're— an amateur or a professional?" "Minister Yang, have you heard of Bai Shihan? She used to be a singer, but later she left the industry. Now she's making a comeback." Rainy Yang frowned slightly. She had heard of Bai Shihan. 2 years ago, she was a rising— her singing skills were indeed excellent. But what made her frown was that Bai Shihan had left because of a scandal. She had been forced out after her relationship with— and her boyfriend at the time was rumored to be a useless pretty boy. That made things complicated. Rainy Yang thought for a moment. Then she looked at me seriously. "I know her. But what is your relationship with her, Mr. Zhang? Do you know why she left the industry?" I met Rainy Yang's gaze. "She is my wife." Even Rainy Yang, who was experienced in the industry, was momentarily taken aback by my answer. "You mean you're that rumored pretty boy? You've got to be kidding." Seeing Rainy Yang's expression, I could guess what she was thinking. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. I was the one exposed in that relationship and forced out alongside her. Rainy Yang suddenly didn't know what to say. She had heard of Bai Shihan, but she had no idea who she had been with. People like me, who who are only known for their look, were naturally beneath her. Now she even started to doubt whether I had really composed those two songs. I didn't give her time to think further. Is it really that difficult for you to sign her? If it truly is, I'll find another way. Moreover, my request isn't just to have her join your company. I also want her to have the best resources and creative freedom within your company. The contract terms must, I believe with my help, Yinhai Entertainment will reach new heights. I sincerely hope you consider this carefully. I finished speaking in one, then calmly took a sip of water. Rainy Yang's expression turned, clearly feeling the pressure. To be honest, we've never worked together. Basing everything, just those two songs you posted on TikTok. It's hard to justify this level. I do acknowledge Bai Shihan's vocal skill, but in the entertainment industry, singing alone isn't it. You should understand that getting her back in the industry, but getting top-tier resources. We've never given a deal like that before. We need to seriously discuss this. This isn't a small matter. Rainy Yang didn't outright reject me, but her words carried a clear message. This was almost impossible. You can discuss it but I'm making my stance clear. This isn't just about solving your current problem. In the future, if you need songs or even scripts of any genre, just ask and I'll provide them. I truly hope we can work together successfully. You brought me here today because you wanted to test my abilities, didn't you? I came, so why not make a decision after seeing it? I said calmly, with a confident look on my face. Yang Chenglin gave me a deep look. It was the first time he had seen someone so confident. In the end, Yang Chenglin hurriedly left after dinner. He had to discuss with the company. I returned to my hotel room. After a quick wash, I lay on the bed and started thinking. If Yin isn't an option, I will try other companies. There must be one that works. If none of them work, then I'll just earn more money. I'll work harder and start my own. Yang Chengming called me at 3 p.m. He said I needed to go to Yinhai Tower with him. At this moment, in the reception hall on the 18th floor, the chairman of the company, Yang Shan, along with several managers from Yinhai Entertainment, I have no doubts about Vice Minister Yang's, but this time, I think he is placing on this Zhang guy. He was just an unknown artist before, and now he is making such outrageous demands. Those two songs on Dojin are good, but who knows where he got them from? I think we are just wasting our time. In response to Zhang Chao's complaint, Yang Shan waved his hand, a gentle smile on his face. We still need to give young people a chance. Let's see his talent first this time. At that moment, Yang Chenglin brought me into the reception. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt that everyone in the room was looking at me. Their eyes revealed different emotions. Some were skeptical, some surprised, some showed disdain, while others were. I naturally took a seat. All right, since the main person is here, let's begin. Mr. Zhang, right? We've discussed your requests in a meeting. Bai Shihan can sign the contract, and we can provide the highest level resource. But the contract cannot be That's something we really can't. There is no such contract. You should understand what I mean, right? I nodded. Of course I knew. But for cooperation, negotiations are necessary. Without how would I know their bottom line? I understand. So how long is the contract? Yang Xian chuckled and looked at me directly. 5 years. We will train him with top-tier resources, and he can release whatever songs he will participate in any events without risk. But the contract must be 5 years. This is the standard for all top artists. I frowned slightly, but I did not shy away from his gaze. I stared back at him. 5 years is too long. I believe in my abilities. With your resources and my talent, he will become a top star within a year, maybe even less than a year. So the most I can agree to is 2 years. 1 year should be enough to bring great benefits to you. For these 2 years, you won't have to worry about Bai Shihan's. Plus, I can write songs for Yinhai for free. But only a limited number. Anyone can make big claims. Becoming a top star within a year? Are you dreaming? As soon as I finished, a bald man sneered. He looked at me with contempt and said, I only glanced at him. I didn't bother acknowledging such a person. I would prove him wrong with my strength. There was no need for words. Yang Shen narrowed his eyes. His fingers tapped lightly on the table. A smile slowly spread across his face. Confidence is a good thing in young people. 2 years is not impossible, but it all depends on your ability. The reason we called you here is partly to discuss cooperation, but on the other hand, Huayin recently launched a nationwide event. Every company is required to participate, but only one song will be selected. I want to win it. So do you have what it takes? I nodded slightly. Wasn't this the reason I came here in the first place? Confident and full of character. I like that. As for the event details, let Vice Minister Yang handle I'll be waiting for your good news. As long as your song gets approved, I can sign the contract immediately. With everything settled, I left the reception hall. I arrived at Yang Chenglin's office on the 16th floor. Yang Chenglin sighed slightly. He hadn't expected his to agree to such an outrageous, but this event was indeed very important. When Yang Chenglin looked at me, his eyes were he truly hoped I could make a breakthrough. That would prove his judgment was right. And by then, all the rumors within the company would naturally be silenced. Take a look. These are the details of the event. You only have 3 days to compose this. I hope you can succeed. I also hope we can work together successfully. I opened the folder. The first thing that caught my eye was a bold title, Ordinary Heroes. Seeing these words, my expression immediately turned serious. I continued reading. Heroes are ordinary, yet they are extraordinary. They don't have divine powers, yet they accomplish what even gods cannot. The office was silent. The only sound was me flipping my expression. It was the most serious it had been since I arrived. I flipped through the doc. There were several photos beneath. The first showed a group of nurses wearing protective suits in the dim hospital lights of the late night. They hadn't even removed their suits, collapsing from exhaustion. The second showed 3 firefighters. They were covered in soot, and behind them, the fire they had extinguished. The firefighter at the front, his face was covered in ash. Yet he had a bright smile on his face, all because in his arms, he was holding a child still wrapped in a blanket. The third photo showed several soldiers, seen only from their faces were not visible. Only the bold words on their uniforms could be narcotics enforcement. And in front of them stood a group of ruthless criminals. The fourth photo showed a collapsing classroom. 2 teachers were guiding the children toward the exit. Another teacher was handing a child to someone outside. Behind him, the classroom was empty. He was the last one left. There were many similar photos. I looked at them carefully, one by one. My heart trembled slightly. Suddenly, I realized even if Yinhai Entertainment didn't agree to I would still write this song. It would be my honor. No profits involved. No concerns about gain. Yang Chenglin broke the silence in the office. Amazing, right? To be honest, if I had the ability, I'd do it even at a loss. I would write a great song to honor them. But unfortunately, I can't. Even in such a large company like Yin, there isn't a single person who can produce a satisfying piece. So what about you? Can you do it? You only have 3 days. In 3 days, Huayin will close the selection process. I nodded. As a Chinese citizen, how could I not be moved? Don't worry, leave it to me. After saying that, I put away the document. That's settled then. Prepare some music sheets for me. I'll return to the hotel and work on it carefully. Yang Chenglin didn't hesitate. Composing a great song in 3 days would be extremely difficult. Time was tight, so he didn't say anything more. Get up and go downstairs. At night, I will lay thin paper flat on the table. I pick up the pen and silently contemplate. After reading the documents, 2 songs appeared in my mind. Both songs fit this theme very well. One is Nameless People. The other is As Long as Ordinary. I thought about it for a long time before making a decision. I chose As Long as Ordinary for the theme. It was the theme song of Dying to Survive. Later, it was used by Huayang as a protest song. It perfectly fits this theme. I picked up my pen and composed the song. One by one, the notes leaped onto the paper. When I finished composing, I finally lay on the bed, satisfied. I suddenly felt a bit excited. How would they react when they see this song tomorrow? The next day, I had a simple breakfast. Without informing Rainy Yang, I took a taxi alone to Yinhai Entertainment. Rainy Yang was still busy working in the office. She was surprised to see me visiting. You still have time to— I only have 3 days, man. Hurry up and think about the song. I smiled and looked at her. It's done. Rainy Yang was completely shocked. I handed her the manuscript. Take a look first. I think this one should work. Rainy Yang looked at me like I was a monster. The usually composed and competent woman seemed to— Are you kidding me? One night? What kind of good song can you write in one? Are you just fooling around? Rainy Yang frowned and took the manuscript. Yesterday, she thought this young man was mature and out, but today, he was slapping her in the face. She wanted to see what he had managed to write in just one. Rainy Yang looked at the manuscript. She remained calm when she saw the title, but as she slowly read through the lyrics, she was completely stunned. What kind of divine lyrics are these? They talk about the ordinary, yet the whole media doesn't mention heroes, yet every hero in the lyrics defines the theme. Then, Rainy Yang couldn't wait to look over. A moment later, she suddenly lifted her head and looked at me. Her eyes sparkled. Did you really write this in one night? I touched my nose and calmly replied, Of course. I stayed up all night to create this. So what do you think? Is this song good? I deliberately asked again, but deep down I knew. If this song wasn't good enough, then no song would be. Rainy Yang's eyes sparkled even more. You are truly amazing. I knew I made the right choice. Can you sing it for me? I want to hear how it sounds when sung. One night, Rainy Yang couldn't even imagine. How much talent must it take to achieve this? Sure, I nodded. I closed my eyes, taking a moment, then I started to sing softly. This is the feeling. At this moment, Rainy Yang's heart started trembling slightly. This was exactly how she felt when she first saw the lyrics. A heart-wrenching admiration for love. She deeply respected them, yet felt she finally understood what a true gap was. The gap was that everyone could feel it, but no one could express it, yet I could convey it perfectly in a song. Yes, because of these beloved heroes who fearlessly ignited the flame of life. That's why so many miracles happen in this world. Rainy Yang was immersed in my singing. Ordinary. As I sang this, my eyes welled up. While tears had long fallen from Rainy Yang's eyes, he seemed unaware of it. He just stared at me. Before, in his mind, I was just a talented yet arrogant person. But now, in his heart, my image was becoming clearer. I was not only talented, but also had a delicate heart. As the song ended, Rainy Yang was still deeply immersed in it. It wasn't until I coughed lightly twice that she suddenly snapped back to reality. Just as Rainy Yang was about to speak, the office door was suddenly pushed open. Liang Shan walked in, clapping as he entered. Behind him was Zhang Chao, the head of the HR department. At this moment, Zhang Chao's face looked pale with shock. He couldn't believe it. How did I manage to compose a song in such a perfect song at that? Dad, why did you barge in without not seeing who had arrived? Rainy Yang looked flustered. She quickly wiped away the tear stains on her face. Yet Yangshan showed no sign of remorse. He still wore a cheerful. He only looked at his precious daughter with a strange expression. It had been so long since he had seen his daughter with such a If I hadn't come, how would I have known that Zhang Xiaoyou had composed such an incredible All right, I'm speechless. He immediately switched from Mr. Zhang to Zhang Xiaoyou, truly a businessman. Anyone who brings him profit becomes fan. You flatter me, Chairman Yang, as long as you're satisfied. Satisfied? I'm more than satisfied. Zhang Xiaoyou, you're a true songwriter. As long as this song is selected by Huayin, we will immediately sign the contract with Bai Shihan. For now, let's sign a cooperation agreement with Zhang Xiaoyou first. That way, he won't have any concerns. Yang Xian nodded with a smile. At the same time, he acted with great. He directly finalized the deal on the. I finally let out a sigh of relief. I knew that this was almost a done deal. The group signed the cooperation agreement on the spot. Signing completed, I bid farewell to Yang Shan. Seeing that I was about, Yang Chenglin suddenly said, "I'll see you off." She had been avoiding looking at me directly. Before, she had stared at me like a fangirl. For a mature woman, that was quite embarrassing. But now that I was leaving, she felt a sudden, inexplicable reluctance. Shaolin, I remember you still have unfinished work, don't you? Xiaozhang is not a child anymore. He doesn't need you to escort him around. I turned my head, about to respond, but Yang Shan suddenly spoke first. Seeing that, I gave Yang Chenglin a grateful smile. Thank you, Minister Yang, for your. I can take a taxi back myself. After saying that, I turned and walked out. Inside the office, Yang Chenglin, like an angry little cat, suddenly bristled. What do you mean? I just offered to see him off, and you immediately. Who does that? Yang Shan looked at his daughter, but didn't get angry. He simply said in a serious tone, "You're not young anymore. It's time to find someone. Jiang is a good guy, but don't forget, he's already married. And as far as I know, he even has a daughter." Yang Chenglin suddenly fell silent for a moment, then coldly said, "Of course I know. I only offered to send him because I invited him over. That's all." The composed, mature woman was back. "As long as you know. Anyway, I just remembered I have work to do too. I'm leaving." Yang Shan strode away. But just as he reached the door, he suddenly poked his head back in. "I'm serious, my dear daughter. You're already 26. You really should find someone. Get lost." Back at the hotel, I planned to pack up quickly before heading home. I still hadn't chosen my flight yet. Yang Chenglin's call suddenly came in. "Hello? Mr. Zhang, I'm really sorry. My dad's tone wasn't very nice. I'm calling to apologize on. I was a bit surprised. I didn't take it to heart at all. Besides, Yangshan had already been quite tactful. As a business mogul, I had already given enough. As for whether he had any ulterior motives, that didn't exist. It was just a fair transaction. Having seen all kinds of people in the capital market, I was already used to it. It's fine. Really, I didn't think anything of it. You don't need to worry about it. Hearing my response, Yang Chenglin's tone softened a little. As long as you don't mind. By the way, are you on your way back to the hotel now? Yeah, I'm already in the car. I'm planning to pack up at the hotel and head back to Jiangcheng, I said. But there was a moment of silence on the other. Then, Yang Chenglin's voice came through again. Actually, Mr. Jiang, you'd better wait another 2. If your lyrics are selected, Huayin will likely still need your assistance. Since you wrote both the lyrics, you understand this song the best. My plans to return home fell apart. I suddenly felt an emptiness inside. But what she said was reasonable. If there were follow-up tasks, constantly flying back and forth would be a hassle. All right, I got it. I'll stay a few more days. After ending the call with Yang Chenglin, I regretfully put down my phone. I started missing my little one at home. Thinking about my grandma, I didn't even notice the smile that had unconsciously formed on my. Soon, 2 days passed. During this time, I spoke with Yang Chenglin a few times. Our relationship was no longer as distant. At least now, Yang Chenglin no longer called me Mr. all the time, which always felt awkward. After all, I was still quite young. I kept making myself sound old. For the past 2 days, I still got up early. Everything seemed calm and uneventful. I suspected that the news from their side, all I could do was wait patiently. On the evening of the 3rd day, I suddenly received a call from an unfamiliar, yet, hello, is this Lao Jiang? It's me, Chen Feng. Chen Feng? I didn't expect to get this call. I quickly sifted through the original owner's memory. After a moment, I remembered. He was my best buddy from university. Madman, it's been a long time. Recalling the days when we walked shoulder to shoulder, I smiled and asked, I don't have any friends in this world yet. Thinking about the original owner's personality and character, my smile grew wider. Having a true friend didn't seem bad at all. Lao Jiang, ever since you got married, what's been going on? You don't answer calls. You don't reply to messages. Are you looking down on your brother? On the other end, Chen Feng's voice sounded full of, but I could sense the concern hidden in his tone. It made my heart warm instantly. It was my fault before. You're the bigger man. Don't hold it against. Spare me this time. I'll treat you to a meal when we meet to make up for it. All right, a meal it is. In my heart, I silently cursed the original owner again. What kind of fool couldn't even tell a friend from embarrassing? Chen Feng's tone suddenly became excited. Ha! You said it. Then no need to wait for. Let's do it today. I'm in Jiangcheng right now. Hearing that, I responded awkwardly. It's not that I don't want to treat you. I'm not in Jiangcheng right now. I came to Shanghai for work. It'll be a few days before I return. I really didn't expect Chen Feng to show up only to find me gone. You went to Shanghai again? No way, no way. Wait for me. I'm flying to Shanghai right now. You're definitely not getting out of this. I finally managed to escape from home. Ready to do something big. I have to share this good news with you. All right, I'll wait for you in Shanghai. I won't go anywhere. I'll send you my location. A meal. I can at least afford that. Ha! I agreed happily. I also wanted to meet this old friend I hadn't seen in. That evening, a taxi pulled up in front of the hotel. 2 people got out of the car. One was a slightly chubby guy around 1.7 meters, his face full of excitement. As soon as he got out, he started looking around. The other was a young woman, dressed in a distinct anime style. She was petite and delicate. After getting out of the car, she seemed a little impatient, following behind the chub, until finally, the guy and I saw each other. Both of us froze for a moment before breaking into smiles. Lao Jiang, madman. The slightly chubby guy was none other than Chen Feng. Chen Feng quickly stepped forward. You haven't changed a bit. In fact, you've got. I almost didn't recognize. I laughed while sizing him up. Haha, you got fat. I remember you used to be in great shape. Muscles and everything. What happened? How did you end up like this? Blame my mom. She thought I was too skinny. She kept feeding. Now I can barely fit through. Chen Feng chuckled. Then he threw an arm around my shoulder. Turning around, he pointed at the anime-styled girl. Let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Ruan Qing. I glanced at Ruan Qing. I nudged Chen Feng in the waist with my elbow. Lowering my voice, I said, Not bad, Mad. Your girlfriend is pretty. After saying that, I nodded politely to Ruan Qing. Hello. I'm Chen Feng's good buddy. Hello, I've heard a lot about you from a Feng. I didn't expect you to be this handsome and real. When Ruan Qing saw me, her eyes clearly lit up but she quickly composed herself. She smiled and replied, Well, of course he's your buddy. Chen Feng immediately added, a satisfied grin on his face. In return, Ruan Qing rolled her eyes at him. What are you so proud of? Ha ha! There's no difference between me and my bud. Come on, let's go. I flew all this way so you're not getting away tonight. Chen Feng grabbed my arm and led me forward. Tonight, I'm at your mercy. I accept my punishment. In the end, Chen Feng only took me to a roadside barbecue stall. He pulled me down to sit right away. I chuckled to myself. Talked so big about treating me, but still couldn't bear to. The three of us sat down. Chen Feng loudly called the owner to order but I noticed that Ruan Qing didn't seem too happy. Carefree as ever, Chen Feng didn't notice this at all. Seeing this, I patted his shoulder. I deliberately said, "Madman, how about we go somewhere else? Weren't you planning to treat me? How much can we even eat here?" Unexpectedly, Chen Feng squinted at me. What's wrong? Too good for a street stall now? Didn't we always come here in college? This is it. Tonight, we're drinking till we drop. My good intentions were. This guy was still as stubborn as ever. I sighed. Fine. This place, your call. But no drinking for me. I quit alcohol. Chen Feng frowned slightly. He didn't understand what I meant. First, I objected to the street stall, and now I quickly patted his shoulder. I explained, brother, I really quit. I made a lot of mistakes because of drinking before. After that, I decided to change and never. Seeing my sincere tone, Chen Feng, only then did he relax. With a hint of regret, he said, all right then, quitting is good too. Saves you from trouble. Tonight, we'll just focus on eating. Oh right, where's your celebrity wife? Didn't she come with you to Shanghai? I shook my head. Nope. I came here for some work. She's at home taking care of the kid. Wow. And your family actually let you leave? Speaking of this, Chen Feng's face was filled with pride. He leaned in mysteriously. It took me a lot of effort. I had to fight for it. You know, I went back to inherit my family's small supermarket. But after I got back, I realized it wasn't just a small supermarket. It's a nationwide chain. Can you believe that? My family kept this from me in the end, I found out I'm actually a rich second generation. I was completely shocked. Back in college, this guy used to freeload meals off me all. I never imagined he'd turn out to be a rich heir. His family really knew how to play the game. I gave him a thumbs up. You're something. Since you know you're a rich heir now, why not just stay home and enjoy life? Why come out? Because I have ambitions, my friend. I can't just sit around doing. I had to argue with my family to get them to let me go. Chen Feng looked a little annoyed. All right, you have a noble spirit. Just then, the barbecue skewers arrived. The three of us started eating while Oh, by the way, Lao Jiang, what are you doing now? Why not join me in business? I quickly waved my hand and I have no dreams. I just want to be a lazy bum. Not interested, I'm planning to be a full-time stay-at-home dad. What do you think? Pretty noble ambition, huh? Chen Feng looked completely stunned. Noble, too noble. Are you planning to be a kept man and live off a woman? Oh, wow, I choked on that. I coughed violently a few times. Who says being a stay-at-home dad means living off a... But honestly, being taken care of like that doesn't sound too bad. I fell into deep thought. Chen Feng called out to me, but he was even more shocked. You're not seriously considering it. Though, to be fair, you do seem like you'd fit the role. Who says being a full-time dad means living off a woman? It's not like I can't make money from home, I argued. Chen Feng patted me on the shoulder. He spoke sincerely. I'm serious. Why don't you join me instead? I'll give you half of my shares. You know, my dream has always been to create anime. To produce animations with a distinct Huago Chinese style. So, my girlfriend and I found a partner and started my girlfriend does voice act. When the time is right, I plan to open a company. You graduated from a media university too. Your major is a perfect fit. So what do you think? I thought about it for a moment. I could tell that Chen Feng was sincerely looking out. After considering it, I shook my head. Feng, I appreciate the offer. If you ever need my help in the future, just let me know. But working together is not. I really plan to be a stay-at-home dad, all right? I won't try to persuade you anymore. If you ever change your mind, you're always welcome. Seeing that I had made up my mind, Chen Feng didn't insist. The two of us stopped discussing the matter. Instead, we enjoyed some skewers while reminiscing about our joyful university days. Most of the time, it was Chen Feng talking while I listened, and Ruan Qing occasionally chimed in. She talked about some of Chen Feng's past. Even though no one was drinking, the atmosphere at the table was lively. As midnight approached, the three of us decided to head home. On the way, Chen Feng and I chatted. Ruan Qing was on the phone with someone. He walked to the side. His voice was very low. Chen Feng and I couldn't hear what he was saying. After a while, the call ended. Ruan Qing caught up with us. Chen Feng turned his head and curiously asked, "Something happened at Wang Jun's studio. They called to report the situation." Ruan Qing replied. "What kind of problem?" Chen Feng looked a bit tense. "Just some equipment issues. It's already been taken care of. No worries, you guys continue chatting. Chen Feng finally let out a sigh. He turned back and continued talking to me. This studio has really drained me. Back when I was working from home, I used to stay up all night editing videos. I spent almost half a year doing that. I nodded. It seemed like Chen Feng wasn't blindly rushing into things. He had actually prepared for he had started getting things ready whilst. Don't worry, Feng. I think you'll definitely succeed this time. But who is Wang Jun? Oh, my business partner. He also works in animation. I met Xiao Qing at an anime convention. We really hit it off when we talked. One became my girlfriend, and the other became my business partner. I didn't respond. Instead, I looked at Ruan Qing. At this moment, there was no expression on his. It was as if he hadn't heard what Chen Feng said at all. I fell into thought. Why would Feng's business partner call in the middle of the night and not call him direct, but instead call Ruan Qing? But this wasn't something I could say out. No matter how close I was to Chen Feng, I couldn't interfere in these personal matters. Chen Feng was carefree. He didn't pay attention to many, but I was different. I had lived too long. I had a vague feeling that something was off about Ruan Qing. The three of us arrived at the. What surprised me even more was they actually booked 2 separate rooms. Chen Feng noticed my confused look. His face flushed red. Xiao Qing is a traditional person, not married, so I understand. I gave Chen Feng a knowing look. Then I continued to ask, how long have you been dating him? Chen Feng just thought for a moment. Almost a year and a half. Xiao Qing is a good girl. This time, opening a studio. She gave me a lot of encouragement. That's why I made up my mind to do it. All right, a traditional, responsible, good girl. I patted Chen Feng on the shoulder. Madman, be more careful in the future. The three of us went up. Chen Zong didn't come to my room to drink anymore. We all returned to our own rooms. The next morning, after finishing I was about to wake Chen Feng for breakfast, but I saw them already packed up. They walked out of their room. There's a problem at Laozhang's studio. I need to hurry back. So urgent. I was a bit surprised. Everything was fine yesterday. What happened overnight? Seeing Chen Feng's anger, it seemed like something serious. Once everything is settled, I'll visit your house and taste your wife's cooking. All right, no more talking. I have to go now. Chen Feng spoke. While pressing the elevator button, all right, I'll walk you downstairs. The three of us hurried out of the hotel. Luckily, a taxi arrived shortly after. Chen Feng got in and waved at me. Laozhang, go back, see you when we. And Madman. If there's a serious, make sure to contact me. Chen Feng nodded. As the car slowly disappeared from my sight, I sighed. Hope everything goes well for Madman. I received a call from Rainy Yang. Your song was selected by Huayin. Rainy Yang sounded very excited. They are preparing to They need the lyricist and composer. They say it's guidance, but it's just giving opinion. After all, I made the song, so I can understand how this MV should be shot and how the song should be. Is that Huayin? A subsidiary of Huayang. I tidied myself up properly before heading downstairs. When Rainy Yang saw me, she brushed her bangs aside. Her eyes sparkled slightly. Didn't notice before. With a little dressing up, you actually look decent. I rubbed my nose, choosing to ignore Rainy Yang's gaze. Let's go, it's getting late. The sooner we finish, the sooner we might still make it for lunch. Without another word, I got into the back seat. Rainy Yang rolled her eyes. The front seat is so big, and yet you can't fit there. Both of us got in the car. As she drove, Rainy Yang spoke about Huayin. The director responsible for shooting the MV called, but the call kept getting. So, do you have any thoughts about the MV and the lead singer? Don't mess up when you get there. Rainy Yang was obviously worried. She thought I was too young and inexperienced, so she was preparing me in advance to avoid stage fright. Don't worry, I've got it. I didn't look nervous at all. On the other hand, Rainy Yang seemed more nervous than me, the actual songwriter. 9:40 a.m. The two of us arrived. A group of people immediately came forward. Leading them was an elderly man with graying hair. Grandpa Lin, why did you come down in person? If my dad finds out about, he's going to scold me to death. Rainy Yang quickly walked up, holding the old man's hand and acting. This move surprised me. A strong woman acting, even gods couldn't resist that. Sure enough, the old man's face bloomed with a smile. His expression was full of affection. You little rascal, don't try that with me. Your dad scold you? He'd be lucky. Ha, Grandpa Lin. The strong-willed lady actually blushed. He waved his hand and said, all right, let's talk business. This must be young Zhang, right? Indeed, heroes emerge from the young, handsome and talented. Hello, sir. Thank you for your kind word. I'm Zhang Chengji. I nodded politely to the elderly man. Good, talented, and well-mannered. No wonder you could write such a great song. I'm Lin Guodong, the director of this MV. If you don't mind, you can call me Grandpa Lin, just like Lin Girl does. Seeing how polite and natural I was, remaining calm and composed, Lin Guodong seemed even more. This was exactly how he had imagined. Thoughtful, talented, yet humble and grateful. Not many young people like this nowadays. Grandpa Lin, you're flattering me too much. Lin Guodong pulled me into the recording studio. Xiaozhang, I heard from Lin Girl that you sing really. Can you sing a little for us first? We've received the song, but we haven't heard it yet. The lead singer hasn't been decided. Sure, I nodded in agreement. A cappella or with piano? Just the piano accompaniment will do. As things got serious, Lin Guodong became visibly more focused. He placed me alone in the recording studio and took everyone else outside. As the staff turned on the microphone, a group of middle-aged men watched in anticipation. Seeing me sit down in the record, preparing myself emotionally, I got into work mode, fully focused. Lin Guodong nodded in approval. This is what a true musician looks like. A musician singing should first bring out the emotion in the song, not just mindlessly wailing. Inside, I began playing the piano. The gentle prelude resonated in the room. Outside, everyone held their breath. Lin Guodong only heard one line, and his eyes widened in shock. Yes, this was exactly the vision he had in his mind. When he first saw the lyrics, he knew this was what it should sound like. He felt it even more. As for Rainy Yang, even though it was her second time hearing me sing this, she still couldn't hide the amazement in her eyes. She stared at me intently. A man like this was simply too captivating. I was completely unaware of this. I was already lost in the song. As the song reached its final notes, Lin Guodong's eyes had already turned slightly. He was once a soldier, so he could deeply relate to the meaning behind the lyrics. Those who work quietly in the background, unseen, are often the greatest of all. They are the ones who deserve to be celebrated by today's. But among all the idol chasers, how many would actually admire these heroes? Not just Lin Guodong, everyone outside was deeply moved. At that moment, they felt they were fully immersed. A truly great song could touch the hearts of all who hear it. As the final note, I took a deep breath before standing up and walking out of the studio. The next moment, everyone instinctively broke into applause. Lin Guodong was even more excited. As he stepped, his eyes were burning with passion. This is the feeling. I don't think we need to find another lead singer. It should be you. I have a strong feeling this song will take the internet by storm. The unsung heroes phenomenon. This is exactly the impact we were hoping for. Hearing such high praise from the old, even someone as composed as me, couldn't help but blush slightly. But I still shook my head. Grandpa Lin, I don't want to be the lead singer. I have a better idea. Would you like to hear it? Lin Guodong frowned. Is there really a better choice than the songwriter himself? There are plenty of good singers out there, but I believe no one understands the meaning of this song better than. Seeing that Lin Guodong was clearly reluctant, I decided not to keep him guessing. I quickly shared my idea. It's like this, Grandpa Lin. I think this song would be more suitable for children to sing. On one hand, children's voices are clearer and more ethereal. On the other hand, if the nation's children sing about these unsung heroes, the song will resonate even deeper. Hearing my explanation, Lin Guodong's eyes widened in surprise. Is this guy a genius? Right. Why didn't I think of that? Children naturally bring a sense of warmth and familiarity. If they sing the song alongside the visuals we're shooting, it will be even more impactful. Xiaozhang, you're truly a genius. Would you be interested in joining Huayin? Don't worry. Huayin would never let your talent go to waste. Lin Guodong's mind was already on recruit. He wanted me to join his team. Letting such talent remain out there would be a waste. No, Grandpa Lin, I'm just a simple guy. Being able to help you this time is already enough for me. I quickly waved my hands and refused with a smile. Come on, I know my own limits. I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants, offering suggestions. After all, in my past life, the most touching version of this song was sung by Lin Guodong was speechless, but he didn't push further. Fine, you're not going anywhere anyway. If another opportunity comes up, I'll come to you again. All right, everyone has their own. Xiaozhang, you'll still be involved in this project. If there's a chance to collaborate again in the future, come with me. Let's check out our footage. Take a look at these clips. Tell me if you have any suggestions. Lin Guodong motioned for me to. He led me into another studio. This was the editing room. All the footage would go through multiple rounds of selection. Then it would be edited into the final MV. As we entered the room, the editors started talking, all at once, explaining the footage. I looked at the computer screen in front of me. Various scenes flashed across it. Each shot captured those silent, unsung heroes. I was stunned. I hadn't expected there to be so many clips, and yet many of these shots would ultimately be cut. That made me feel a little sad. In my opinion, every person captured in these frames deserved respect. They deserved to be known by the world. Lin Guodong seemed to understand my thoughts. He patted me on the shoulder. Xiaojing, don't be sad, this is their duty. In this promotional video, no one will remember them as individuals. They represent a collective. As long as people learn to appreciate this group as a whole, and remember, even subtly, that there are still people making silent sacrifice. In fact, they should be thanking you. Your song Ordinary not only does appeal to the tastes of modern youth, but it also spreads their story. We old folks, we just can't create songs that resonate with young, but we're afraid they'll forget these heroes. That's why we sought out a song like this. Lin Guodong sighed and then smiled at me. Luckily, you gave us exactly what we needed. You showed me the burning passion of today's youth. And that's enough. I looked at the old man, then back at the flickering faces on. I was truly moved by them. Indeed, no matter the world, there are always such wonderful people. Grandpa Lin, I have no suggestions. And as for the video production, I'm not an expert in that field. I'll leave that to you and your team. Honestly, I can't wait to see the finished video. I said this with absolute sincerity. I believe that in the hands of this team, the final product. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe to Nice Gam Lee channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new content. Your support is a huge motivation for me to keep creating better videos. Once again, thank you so much, and see you in the next video.